right, we are back from executive session. If you will please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. You gonna be all right?
Not helping, but I have.
All right, for consent agenda, we have our minutes of September 26th. Take a look at those and see if there are any edits that need to be made.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of September 26, 2024 as presented in the packet.
Do I have a second? Mr. Hicks? Or is there any, any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cormier? Or Miss Cormier, I'm sorry. Miss Cormier? Yes. And I vote yes. All right, those are approved. Okay, we can move on. We have our student representatives. We have two with us tonight. Thank you for being here. If you'd like to go ahead and share all the exciting news with us.
All right, so we wanted to start off with a quick Spirit Week update. We just had our Spirit Week. The winning class was the seniors, but it wasn't rigged. Not rigged. Seniors did win, though. Events, we had lots of fun events, like dodgeball, Hungry Hippo, blanket races, Dutch auction, and some really fun dress-up days as well. You got the classic, like pajama day, and then we also had the royal family. I believe we talked about that last time. And also, HOCO update. We had the Shirley Temple Bar for the Stuco fundraiser, of course. Safe drinks, non-alcoholic. And it was really fun. We had some great DJs, some good food, and, most of all the people. And also, Mr. Young got taped. I know we've been...
Oh, yeah.
Sorry?
Pictures?
I think I have one on the Insta. I think we posted one
Yeah,
on the Instagram.
we took pictures. Pretty sure we posted them. It was really cool.
Did he fall? Did he stay taped?
He was slipping for a little bit, but one of our student council members, Ella Imparado, came up with the idea to put tape on one side and then hook it under his feet, so he was kind of standing on the tape, which worked pretty well. But
There's some problem solving that we like to see.
Yeah.
Critical thinking.
Good engineering.
Yeah.
All right. And then also, Service Club and Environmental Club are planning a school-wide cleanup on November 7th. So we're going to try to clean the school a bit, make it nice and pristine. The German Club hosted a successful Oktoberfest, again, non-alcoholic. I believe Ms. Holman was at it too. And we were talking about how they have, lots of great food, activities, again with the food, chocolate, pretzels, root beer, potato salad, things like that. Also, another event. UNICEF is hosting a Halloween event. It's a trick-or-treat fundraiser. You buy a little box of candy, and then the money goes to children in less fortunate places. And it's after school the 28th through the 30th. And the class of 2020 is wearing pink for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And then also, Saturday, we have the PSAT. So juniors can take the PSAT, and they can even win a scholarship for the NMSQT. So that's like $2,500 around there, depending on how well you do. And then also, even though the sophomores can't win the scholarship, I do recommend them taking it. I took it last year as a sophomore, and it was a good experience to see where I lacked and what I had to study. And then, again, I'm going to take it again, maybe get a scholarship. I'm hoping, but also, again, to practice and get the SAT score. And then I'll turn it over to Harper.
Also, coming up for student council, we do a annual Halloween dress up contest on the day of Halloween, where students can come to Mr. Meehan's room dressed up in their costumes, and we take a photo and then put it on a Google form for students to vote on and award like a winner. And then teachers can also participate in that. We've had some good teacher costumes over the past couple of years. This weekend, there was senior parking spot painting, where seniors, if they got their design approved, were allowed to paint their parking spot. There were a lot of great designs. It was a lot of fun. And following that, we held Senior Sunset, where seniors could pay $10 to come have burgers or hot dogs, along with chips and other drinks, and come play lawn games on the field and be there with their friends to watch the sunset. It was a really good event, and we had a lot of fun. The NHS has the blood drive coming up, which I believe we talked a little bit about last time. The quarter ends November 1st, and then I believe it's a week after that grades close. The 29th is Sergeant's Trunk or Treat, and Officer Shop, which is another student council event, is happening on this weekend on the 26th. It's a state student council conference, and our school is bringing, I think, 5 or 6 delegates to attend 2 workshops, a roundtable discussion, and other leadership activities to kind of build those leadership skills and meet other student council people from around the state. I'm putting on a workshop, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. The band and cheer and also football had their senior night last Friday on the day of homecoming, and the football team won their game. And Kittredge Picture Day is on Friday.
Great, thank you.
Question, do you know what the date of the blood drive is?
I believe we have it on here somewhere.
November 1st.
Thank you.
Sorry. And I do have a photo of Mr. Young. It's not a very good photo.
That's an amazing, no, it's not good, it's an amazing photo. That's
Wait.
spectacular.
We gotta bring it over.
Oh, I gotta steal your phone for a moment.
We've got to pass this around.
Oh my, wow. No,
Right?
that's good sport. That's some good tape.
This is available on Instagram, or something?
I think it's on Instagram.
Okay.
I know we
Oh my
posted
God.
it at least
Oh,
on
you
the
didn't see it? I
story.
thought you would.
But
Oh,
we went through
That's a lot of
tape, I think.
he's not allergic to.
He looks a little like
Yeah.
It worked there.
flush.
Right.
It's amazing, thank you. Pretty cool.
Thank you.
Great picture.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Oh, can I ask one question?
Yeah.
Harper, you're a senior, right?
Yeah.
How is the college process? Has it started for seniors yet? Like, I know, like, we have some visits going on. Are you all doing
It's
your visits with the
definitely-
guidance counselors and getting it all going?
It's definitely started. I know myself, I've met with my guidance counselor twice this week to talk about college stuff. Some students have already turned in applications, with some early deadlines being October 15th. Next Friday is a big one because a lot of the schools have November 1st deadlines. I know myself, I think I have 5 or 6 November 1st applications due. And then I know the guidance counselors have been very helpful. They're always available, and I appreciate them so much, especially, like, yeah. And then also the college visits are great. I know I myself have attended a couple, and I have friends who have attended a couple. My friend Braylon, she attended one today, and she wasn't sure about the college and then went to visit and was like, I know what I'm writing my supplemental about, because she found the session very helpful.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to ask, Louine, will you just scoot one chair over and Harper one chair over, and then we have space for upcoming presentations. Thank you. Okay. Do we have any public comment?
Juliette Darmon, North Andover Teachers Association President, 8th grade French and German teacher, and North Andover resident. Good evening. I would like to first thank Vice Chair Mr. Hicks for your dedication and passion on the middle school building committee, along with the rest of the committee. I would also like to particularly thank the town of North Andover, in particular town manager Melissa Rodriguez and her team for fully funding the middle school addition. The middle school building extension is absolutely stunning and offers additional space that both staff and students desperately need. I wish I had, like Interim Superintendent Lathrop generally does, a presentation with pictures of how educators have been using the space, but also the large amount of work all staff has put between last school year and this school year while teaching to make this new space work within the space we already have. Indeed, the original plan of where each teacher classroom at NAMS would be, where they would be moving through the renovation and where they will end up when the project was finished, changed many, many times. This caused teachers to move several times within a short amount of time while teaching. Some moved up to 3 times. The pictures I would have for you tonight would be pictures of teachers moving various boxes, fragile items, maps, posters, various students' projects that they're worried the movers may damage in the move, and so on. I would have pictures of TAs helping the teachers, custodians passing out boxes, listening to staff saying that room so-and-so is missing a teacher's desk, or that they need more trash bags as they are parting away with years of classroom decorations rather than moving them. I would have pictures of the middle school administrative team, and one of them is right behind me, along with Mr. Smith, emptying a science classroom so an AMS teacher can quickly move her belongings in that room. And throughout the week, email exchanges of the wazoo between many teachers trying to figure when they could move their belongings into the room he or she was assigned without disrupting the overteacher there, I'm sorry. So I truly hope Interim Superintendent Lathrop and the school committee thank and acknowledge the whole middle school staff for what they have done and continue doing while they keep educating, caring for, and simply cherishing the middle school students. We in turn have probably not noticed too much change, except for probably all the boxes, and sometimes wondering where the classroom is, because the staff at the middle school has carried on, just like the staff in the North Andover Public Schools always carries on. I thank you.
Yeah, so we have, is there any other public comment? Okay. We do have school committee response to public comment.
Yes, Mr. Armand, thank you for sharing some of the troubles that the staff experienced in moving. It is I imagine it was a frustrating thing because we know that what people want to do is just work with the kids and teach. And thank you for the staff for being so flexible and willing to do the work to get there. We had movers do a lot of the stuff, but some of the things you don't want to trust there, and I understand that. The things that are priceless to us, we would not want to risk getting ruined. And it's been a huge project, and it has shifted many times. And the timeline that we thought is not the timeline we ended up with, and the moves we thought we're going to have are not the moves we ended up with. And along the way, the staff has been very flexible and willing to do that. And thank you to George for making sure that everything was communicated clearly for what needed to happen. I think there's another one coming up next week. The 7th graders are moving. I'm going to invite you up later on during the building update to tell us what's happening. So get ready. My 7th graders are moving too, and they're both like, oh, what's that going to look like? And excited about that to be in a different space. But yes, certainly thank you to the staff for all that they've done to make sure that school feels normal and regular, even though it's chaotic and time feels like it's in the middle of a construction zone. Really appreciate them.
I will add my thanks to the staff and administration over there. Just think I should say that. But I actually have a question. Since I don't have a student in the school, I would like to see the place. And we had discussed potentially maybe having a meeting there. So I'd like to sort of throw that out as a possibility.
Yeah, we're going to put that into the works.
Okay.
We've had that.
Yeah, because I'm anxious to see it. I haven't had a chance to see it, other than the outside, which looks really nice.
The building committee has also had a conversation about potentially some sort of, we had a groundbreaking, but some sort of opportunity to let public have opportunities to see the new addition as well, because it's
Yeah.
quite spectacular.
Well, we should do. I want a ribbon cutting, and it's
A
still
ribbon cutting,
it
that's
is
the
still
word.
ongoing. I think the auditorium still has some work to happen in,
Yep.
in the curtain and stuff, and there's some final things to wrap up by January. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll just echo my thanks. I think that we've had I appreciate Juliet's words and recognizing, and just also recognizing the entire building committee. There's lots of hardworking people that have been working very hard to make sure the building gets open on time. I think that we've had some opportunities here at school committee to recognize the staff and to be and recognize the leadership team. I think it was part of my opening remarks. The first day of school, but we'll continue to think of ways that we can support the middle school and thank them for working during challenging times and continuing to educate the kids and do all the things that they need to do and move spaces. It's not ideal, and we certainly appreciate the above and beyond work that's happening at the middle school.
Thank you. And I will echo that. I think we sometimes get lost that even though school's in session and the additions there, that there's still so much going on and still so many moving pieces that everybody's having to deal with. So we do appreciate the flexibility and the hard work that's being put into that. All right, we have superintendent recognition.
Yes, I have a couple. So this past weekend, North Andover High School celebrated their North Andover Hall of Fame. We'd like to congratulate all of the prior athletes and coaches who were inducted into the Hall of Fame. We want to give a special shout out to Karen Leahy, who is the Sargent School Principal, who was inducted for her coaching time at North Andover High School. We also had 2 members of the 1981 cross-country team who are currently North Andover employees, Rick Delakai, who is a teacher at the high school and a track coach, and Paul Dookie Quintel, who is our custodian at the middle school, who were inducted into the Hall of Fame. So congratulations to all of them. I heard it was a great celebration. And then I also wanted to share with you that there was a project that's coming out of the Department of Education that's featuring one of our teaching assistants in our district. The Department of Education recognized the need for high-quality professional learning for all, they call them paraeducators, but we call them TAs here in North Andover. So the Department of Ed has designed and produced a series of e-learning modules for paraeducators. Last spring and early this school year, they put an all-call out for paraeducators to share their experiences and their stories working in their role. And Erin McFeeters, who is a teaching assistant at Franklin School, volunteered. She shared, and she will be featured in some of those training modules. So I want to say congratulations to Erin.
Amazing. Thank you. All right, roundtable reports. It's an opportunity for the committee to talk about any community events that they've participated in, things they want to discuss. I wanted to start out, Thompson had their fall festival, which was really successful. We had one of those beautiful Saturdays on this past Saturday to do that. I was able to decorate a trunk. Well, I had a frunk. So, but it was a lot of fun. A lot of parent volunteers, families came out. A lot of the teachers, staff put a lot of work into it. The 5th grade had a haunted hallway to raise for their 5th grade funds, and it was a really successful event, and it was a lot of fun.
Yep, we had a very successful North Andover Athletic Association, had a very successful Nights on the Run. Over 400 participants, including about 150 in the kids race. Thompson can't be beat. They won again. It's just amazing. It's an incredible record. But the cool thing was there was increased participation from all the schools this year. Every school went up, which was great. So public shout out and thank you to all the NAAA people who put that on. We got some nice help from the track coach over at Merrimack, who kind of runs the kids' race and did a really great job. So thanks to everybody for supporting our athletic programs. And then other piece of news is that I've been asked to be a judge at the robotics competition coming up on November 23rd. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Where's that taking
At
place?
high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
On Friday night, my daughter wanted to go to the football game with her friends. So following the rules that the middle school has sent out and the administration supported, I went along to chaperone and make sure that I was there because they're in middle school and you need to have a parent there. But Well, she abandoned me.
Like immediately, right?
Like immediately. I didn't even get to like finish paying for my ticket, and she was already gone. It felt like every high school football game I went to before I go there with people, and they left me. It's fine. It's fine. But no, it was really fun. It was a great game. It was against Lawrence. Some really great displays of athleticism and great scoring drives, and staying focused. But it felt really serene, and the side of the stadium I was on felt very well, supportive, and nothing I had heard about some of the things that happened at previous games, and that was not the tone here. So thank you to the high school administration and to the students and to everyone for making it a great place to bring your kid on a Friday night. And I learned that the Galapagos trip for next year is very popular. Only a couple kids away from an additional 5th chaperone.
Oh, wow.
Or 6th. Yeah. Interested 30-something kids.
Wow.
Amazing. All right. Any upcoming district or community events?
I think that our student reps covered most of them. I just want to remind the community that I'll be holding my informal office hours on Monday, October 28th, here in this conference room from 10 to 11:30. That's an in-person event. And then again on Monday, November 4th, from 6 to 7:30, and that will be a virtual event. Office hours are informal, and they are for students, staff, families, community members to come and share with me. I'm just looking to hear some of your experiences with the district, our strengths, and areas where you feel we might need to focus. No need to make an appointment. This is a very informal gathering. And then I also wanted to just share that on October 31st, while we're also celebrating Halloween in the district, but we're also celebrating Diwali. Diwali is on October 31st, and we'll make sure. I think Ms. Cormier had pointed out last time that our schools are sharing some information about some of the holidays that our students are celebrating. So we'll be sharing some information about Diwali to our students and staff.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we are looking to set some more dates for our school committee community chats. We did have a survey that went out with some dates to our school committee members. So looking at the calendar, it looks like we only have 2 at those events.
So I have a kid comp at 1 to 2 every Saturday. So I can't, those days work for me. I just can't do one. I can never do 1 to 2 on a Saturday. So that's why you see me no for all of them. So if we decide to move times up or down on those days, then I can
Okay,
pitch in. That's why I'm a no-show.
understood. Okay. So I guess we just need to decide how often we want to do it and what dates we want to go ahead and move forward with them. Our last one was the Fall Festival.
Yep.
So if we want to do another one wintertime, and then it looks like we have like a springtime one. So looking December, February, and then again in the spring, March, May, June timeframe. So probably 2 more throughout the year. Ms. Cormier,
Yeah,
I mean,
2.
you're kind of
Probably
heading them up.
2
so-
or 3. I would say 2 or 3 throughout the year. Let's plan for 2 and see what happens. It's hard.
Right.
We switch the times.
Sort of our precedent in the past, or we tried to do last year anyway, it was one per marking period kind of thing, right? Or trimester, I guess is the better way to put it. We don't do trimesters anymore, but that was
Yeah, and what we've done before was we had them at the library. I think wintertime is probably that's the better place to have them since we're going to be
Yeah,
a nice
inside
warm
somewhere.
indoor
Yeah.
space. So, I mean, the February 1st looks like more people are available. I mean, it's just an hour time period. We only really need 2.
Yeah.
Do we want to shoot for that February 1st date? Does that work? Does that seem like a good idea? We can do that.
Yeah, let's go for it.
And then looking into March, May, June, and we could do a March and a June. That way we're hitting, well,
The June one we would have to do not at the library because it's after Memorial Day,
yeah, that is true.
but I think that's fair that we do. We did it last year in June here. It worked well.
At the end of the year, there was people at the end of the school year that I guess maybe they
Yeah,
had
we
things
had
to say at the end
we
of
had
the
a
school year,
policy
so it
number,
worked.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I recall that, yeah. So maybe we'll stick with that, because I could probably do that June 7th date. It's looking quite a ways out, and then we'll look at doing that March. Actually, we have very limited availability in March. Doesn't look like March would work at all.
Unless we adjust the
You
time.
adjust the
perhaps.
time, then I can participate. Just can't do that 1 to 2 slot.
What time would work
I mean,
better?
could we do like 11 to noon?
We could probably, would
Ah.
11 to noon work for anybody else?
Yeah, it would work for me.
All right, so we say
Okay.
11 to noon on
March 1st.
March 1st.
March 1st, all right. 11 to noon. So we can do Kelly and Dave
Yep.
on the 1st. And then I can do the 7th with Dave. Does that work for you? And then Ed, if you can do the 1st. And Joe, can you do February 1st?
Sure.
Okay.
At 1 to 2?
Yes.
If I said I could, then I will.
All right, so we'll have those 3. So we have February 1st, March 1st, and June 7th, and those will put us through the end of the year. Perfect.
Sweet.
Thank you.
And is this in the library?
Yes,
Most likely.
February?
most likely at the library, except for the June one, to be determined.
Okay.
All right, around the district.
Okay. Before I start, I want to just recognize an email that Lucy McCarthy sent out to many families today, and just also recognize that we have been having some issues with transportation. We've heard from families, we understand that this is disruptive, and that your children coming home, spending longer time on the bus is challenging. Unfortunately, we have 5 buses that don't currently have drivers. We are working closely with the busing company. They are working diligently to employ drivers. I believe that one was probably hired today, and even just having the one is going to alleviate a lot of the problems. But Ms. McCarthy, who is our Director of Transportation, did send out an email today to the families that were affected, shared with them what the changes might be, and shared with them the delay in time that the buses would be, anticipating about a 20-minute delay for what we have. But we believe this to be very short time. And again, we're working quickly, and the bus company's working quickly. But I did want to just put that out there, that we recognize and we acknowledge that we have an issue in transportation. It's hard to, shortages, if we don't have drivers, it's hard to get the buses where they are. So we're working as closely and quickly as possible. Okay, you want to make that there we go. So my first page tonight, I just wanted to highlight NAMS. You've heard us talk about, or I think we've shared that Hispanic Heritage Month was the month starting, I think, September 15th and ran through October 15th. And NAMS, under the leadership of Victoria Torres, who's up there in the right-hand corner, who is our parent liaison, always has a group of students who help us to celebrate. This is third year in a row, so we believe it's really on its way to becoming a tradition. And they make the crafts, and they put that out in the cafeteria. I want to think that little movie's going to show. Can you try click on that? We'll see. Just a nice little showing of the work that the students, did, the banners.
If you click the bottom right, Kristen, it'll take the whole screen.
Oh, there you go. But just thought it was nice to share this, and another opportunity for us to recognize our hardworking NAM staff. And despite of everything, they kept this tradition alive, so we really appreciate it. You can stop playing. And then, I'm gonna escape out.
I have to remember to get out of there.
Yeah,
No, that's it.
hit that
You
little
can
thing
hit the
again,
escape button.
or hit the escape button. There we go. And we'll just go on to the next slide.
Sure.
Oops.
I'll play the video.
There we go. Just some of the things that I've been doing, and things that are happening in the district. So on October 15th, Kristen Ando, Lynn O'Neill, and I met with Maureen Ryan and Heidi Waters. They are parent volunteers who have been running the Understanding Our Differences program in the district. They started this many, many years ago, and really they work, I think they target grades 3 through 8, and it is a program that comes out of Newton Public Schools and really helping students understand each other's differences. And they put them through some simulations, and it's been widely popular. Unfortunately, it's run largely by volunteers. During COVID, it was challenging, although they did a good job doing it remotely. But the last year, they had some difficulty getting people to join and to volunteer again. So they came to talk to us a little bit about it, share some information. It was a great meeting. The takeaway from that was that Lynn was going to reach out to CPAC and talk about it and connect them with Maureen and Heidi, who are willing to perhaps stay on a little bit longer or to help if there's other parents that might be interested. It really, the start was when they were part of CPAC, and so maybe reaching back out, but the goal is to bring understanding our differences back to our schools. On October 16th, myself and Greg Landry met with Deb Holman and Meg Pinkston. Deb Holman, as you know, is our principal at the high school. Meg Pinkston is director of guidance, and Amy O'Teary, who is a science teacher, but she's also runs the Knights Academy. So we had an opportunity to meet with them to talk about the Scarlet Knights Academy. It was great to hear more about their program. They shared with us some of their needs, some of their future, and what it really was an opportunity for us to start budget planning. It's one of the areas that we realized that we haven't budgeted appropriately for, so it was a good opportunity to start to have that conversation. And what sort of came out of that was maybe an opportunity to come back to the school committee at some point and share all of the resources that we have for students who perhaps traditional, 9 to 3 or 7 to 2 education doesn't work for, and to give the community and give the board a little bit more of a broader understanding of what we're doing. October 16th, I had my weekly meeting with the town manager. This is an opportunity for us to come together, either share concerns that we have, ask questions of each other. I find it very valuable. It's a great time, and it's a time for us to collaborate together and share some resources. October 17th, I had an opportunity to go see the Sergeant Fun Run. You're going to see Coach Leahy there, or Principal Leahy, cheering on one of her students as they're running in their fun run. October 17th also was our facilitated coordinated meeting. So as you remember, last year we moved some of the money in our school budget into facilities, and in order to make sure that runs carefully and runs well, because when you move that money, it also becomes another responsibility, becomes a responsibility of the town. So we put together a facilities coordinated meeting, and we meet, and it's we keep a sort of an agenda. It's an opportunity to talk about projects, how's it going, who's doing what. Those meetings usually consist of the town manager, assistant town manager, myself, Greg Landry, John Mullen, Steve Foster, and Jeremy Brandy. So those meetings have been really productive. On Friday the 18th, like Mr. Hicks, I was able to go to the North Andover High School homecoming football game. It was delightful. It was a beautiful night. I didn't know that the students put together, they sent out some information about what color to wear. Friday night was pink, so there was a large crowd of pink. The 8th graders got the memo, or the middle school got the memo, because they were all there in pink as well, and that was fantastic to see. But again, it was a great game. We won, so that's always nice. Band performed. There were 8th grade students. There was 8th grade night, so 8th grade joined our band. So that was fantastic. And then on the 19th, I went to the Knights on the Run. As Mr. Brown just said, it was a really fun event. I put a little picture there of Thompson Tiger. The Thompson Tiger came to cheer on his squad. They were certainly awfully pleased that there was some great participation, and I did see participation from the other schools this year, which was really nice to see as well. This past week, I think this past week, I don't know, I lose track of days, but on the 21st, we had our Principal's Learning Arc. So that's, as a reminder, that's the time that we come to talk about curriculum or instruction. Our outcomes for this time was to examine strategies for communicating about the election with faculty and students. As you may be aware, I sent out a letter to all families and staff about the election, about some of the things that we can and can't do. But we were able to further talk about this, share some articles, talk about what it means for our students, and then that's some information that the leaders will bring back to their building. And we also one of our meeting outcomes was to analyze MCAS data to start looking for some of the bright spots. We just sort of touched the surface on this because the election and how we help and understand the election within our school day really did take up the bulk of our time, but it was a really thoughtful and productive conversation. On the 22nd, I participated with many administrators in the district, a webinar that the Department of Education put out about combating hate in Massachusetts schools. It was I know Mrs. Ando was listening to it as well. It was a really interesting webinar, and it gave us some opportunity to think about things and how we are addressing hate in our schools. And that is a topic that has come forth before, so it's always good to have resources, and it's great because then the Department of Education shares their slides and shares their resources with us. On the 22nd, I also had a middle school building committee meeting. Those are moving along well, and it was nice to start to think about sort of, the end, is in sight, but we also talked a lot about the move, and Ms. Starman was right that it takes a lot to put into the move and a lot of coordination. It's luckily that Mr. Gonzalez is a master scheduler because it's like a clockwork what's going to happen over there. On the 23rd, I went to NAMS. It feels like this is a NAMS night. On the 23rd, I went to NAMS, and I was able to join Coffee and Conversations. Nicole Parker, who is a special education teacher, she teaches primarily reading in special education. She held a Coffee and Conversation meeting for parents or really anybody in the community to talk about the kinds of work that she's doing as a teacher of reading, and especially for students who might not be reading right at the level where they are, but also wanting to make sure that they have access to high interest, high quality books, explaining what a Wilson program looks like. It was a nice attendance. She did some raffles. Officer Scarlett came, and she's looking forward to finding other ways to connect with her families. On the 23rd, we had our budget review meeting. That is a monthly meeting. It's a wonderful time. Not wonderful in that's challenging to talk about the budget, but it's wonderful in that it is a partnership between the schools and the town. It was something that came out of the MOA that you all agreed to, but we are very consistent about it. It's a place of collaboration and communication. It's a place where we can be vulnerable with each other, and it's hard when things aren't as easy as you'd want them to be, and when budget is sort of that looming thing, but it makes it easier or better when there's a collaborative spirit and that we feel in true partnership with the town and that we are able to be vulnerable with the people that are supporting and helping us. Also on the 23rd, I had a mentoring session. I think I might have briefly mentioned this, but through Massachusetts Association for School Superintendents, I've elected to have a mentor as opposed to going through the induction program. And so which I could potentially at some point go through that. They have a formal program, but given some of the things that are happening this year, that didn't seem to be the right path. So I chose to work with a mentor. His name is John Massero. He is a retired superintendent, spent most of his time in Stoneham, but last year he was in Everett as an interim superintendent. His background and his expertise is in financing. So when I worked with MASS, I had an opportunity to share with them areas that I really felt like it would be the most beneficial to me. And so I shared with them that I thought finance would be the most beneficial. And so that's been great. And so we meet every 2 weeks. And then also on the 23rd, myself, Kristen Ando, and Ben Cabrera met with Cindy Weeks Bradley, who's from the equity process. We had an opportunity to chat with her, for her to share with us that she is soon to be getting ready to give us our report, the equity process. It's been a little bit long, and some of the reasons for that is that we did struggle in the springtime, and that we were busy dealing with financial crisis and some changes, and so that put a little pause on some of her work. But it's also a reminder that this was a project that was both school and town, so she had to conduct work with us and conduct work with the town. But we had an opportunity to hear a little bit about some of the things that are going to be in the report, and then I think right after the 1st of November, the report will become, she'll go to print, like it'll be not in draft form any longer, and then we can bring it forward and share and talk about how we want to share that. But it was we talked about an hour. She had lots of great things to say about North Andover, and had some recommendations that she'll be sharing with us. We also had an early release day. On that link is just shares some of the things that our staff participated in. Maybe. The internet's been incredibly slow. So what we try to, oopsies, did it go away? I keep going. I think October's up top. No? Oh. Maybe not. It's okay. There we go. Right. So we break it down from preschool, pre-K to 5, and then 6 to 8, and then 9 through 12. Largely our elementary, we're looking at math, an introduction to math practices. This was led by our teacher leaders, which was wonderful, and our leadership team, our FCIs. Special education was working on goals and goal writing. The middle school also was working on, I believe, goals. Our high school was starting to continue their work on Portrait of a Learner. But we have mapped out what our professional development looks like for the year, and recognizing that at NAMS this year, some of their professional development time, rightly so, needs to be devoted to packing and moving.
Packing and goal setting.
Packing and goal setting, correct. So that's sort of where I've been for the past 2 weeks and the things that have been happening around the district.
So busy.
Yeah, so busy. I didn't mention it, but on that, if you go back to the slides, on that slide, the pictures there are all pictures from the time that we spent in Ms. Parker's room. And one of the things that she did was give some people some opportunity to leave some feedback for her, which was really great. And then she shared a little bit of that with me, of things that, helping her prepare and how she can support teachers. So I thought that was wonderful. Okie doke.
So one of the things that I had neglected to mention earlier in the meeting is, as I reviewed the agenda and talked a little bit more with Ms. Lathrop about it, we are going to be talking about some heavier topics that are going to be taking up some more time. So if there's no objections from the rest of the committee, I'd like to postpone the superintendent's goals to our next meeting. If there's no objection to that, that is going to. All right, that is going to be postponed to our next meeting. All right, we have a budget status update.
We do have a budget status update. And, this is a challenging budget status update because it's going to look dramatically different than the last time that we were together. So I'm just going to put the slide up here for a minute to have an opportunity for us to take a look at it. So I just want to remind us, as last time I shared, that it was really challenging to give an accurate picture, as we had not gone through a billing cycle, and it made it difficult for us to project out some of our expenses. We have much more information now, and while this update that I'm going to share with you is going to highlight areas of concern, I do feel as though we have an accurate picture of our expenses and our salaries. So tonight you'll see that we are currently running in a deficit. So where you see parentheses, that is showing that it's a negative. So the sum of available money left is below zero. So we're running negative $451,877.76. And then if you factor in the not encumbered expenses and salaries, so if you can scroll up for a minute, Kristen. So on this side, the left-hand, on the left-hand side are the non-encumbered salaries and expenses. So things that we have not moved into like encumbering that money are substitutes, long-term substitutes, custodial overtime, teaching assistants, extra hours and stipends, academic stipends, or teachers and teaching assistant stipends, additional salaries, our athletic coaches for winter and spring. We did encumber fall. And then in terms of expenses, some of the things that we still have not encumbered are special education tuition from our TOPS program, and students who maybe are currently we're looking at evaluations of things that we might need, special education transportation. We're still unsure of the amount that could be. So when you factor in the unencumbered expenses with where we are already in a negative balance, what I show here is a projection of a $2.5 to $3.5 million deficit as we are trending towards the end of the school year.
Could I just ask a clarification that you said?
Can we hold on for one
Oh, I'm sorry.
one moment? Are we?
Want me to just keep going? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, can we wait until she's finished with her presentation?
Yeah, because maybe it'll answer a question, but write it down because I want to hear it. So a lot of factors. I really want to emphasize that a lot of factors go into this deficit. And while we did eliminate unbudgeted teaching assistants, as we had talked about last year, and some positions, it wasn't enough to offset the operations that we have in place. If you've had an opportunity, and I know you all have, to read the CLA report, it did state that without operational changes, a deficit of this amount would be likely. Forecasting our true needs has been a large challenge and an obstacle for us because there has been very little tracking, consistency, and contracts that were not in place that would guide this work. And that is, to share with you, that is some of the reasons why we're showing this deficit and projecting a larger deficit. You'll also see, as you look at this chart, that there's a large decrease in available funds for salaries. While I had reported that we had encumbered all salaries, we did discover an error, and 7 staff members were not encumbered, which resulted in approximately $700,000 that was not encumbered properly. The correction has been made. We've put corrective action into place. Payroll is also doing an audit of all encumbered and remaining salaries. The town financial director and our supervisor of accounts have worked very closely. They were together for a large portion of today to go through all of our salaries and expenses so that we can, now that we have all of the data, that's why we're able to have a more accurate picture. I just want to continue to express that we are working very closely with the town manager, and what I said before in terms of having the ability to be vulnerable, the town manager and her department are partners with us. They are working collectively with us to mitigate some of these issues. We certainly will continue to reduce our spending where we can. If there are opportunities to make cuts, we will. And what this information gives us is, while it is hard to read and look at, it does definitely give us a clearer picture as we prepare for our very accurate FY26. And just before I take questions, I wanted to also share that on this slide, we did account for some of the funding sources that will help us. So we still have incoming tuition from Danvers and Haverhill. We have we used about $350,000 in Title money last year for support salaries and expenses, and so we anticipate being able to do that again this year. We have the town manager has given us all of the Medicaid money, so sometimes you know that we receive part of it, so we can anticipate all of the Medicaid money this year to the dollar amount of $464,000. We have the Amazon money that we still are coming our way for $170,000. And so that brings us up to about $1.1 million. And then, as again I said, the town manager has been very thoughtful and working very closely with us and has reached out to the select board. And pending approval of the select board, there's $750,000 that will be pending approval at the select board meeting moved into the school budget. So we have about $1.8 million to offset that deficit of 2.5 to 3.5. And we did really try to project worst case scenario. So worst case scenario of what tuition might be, worst case scenario of what special education busing might be, worst case scenario of what busing general education might be. So we're getting closer to the 2.5 million. Okay, questions?
Thank you, Ms. Lathrop. I know this is not easy news to deliver. You have put a lot of work into this budget throughout this year, trying to make it work, trying to gather data that was not previously put together. And as we saw from the CLA report, they had also noted that the historical data just had not been there. And now we are trying to put pieces of a puzzle together. And as we put those pieces together, it's not painting a pretty picture, to say the least. And I'm too very grateful for the town working side by side with us and trying to put those pieces together. Would you be in agreement? We've put a lot of procedures into place and had those procedures. Those procedures are what are helping us find these things a lot earlier than we had in the past. And because of that, we can start to be more mindful of what we can do going forward. We're now in October versus
Correct.
April, right?
Correct.
But thank you very much for being transparent about this and bringing it to our attention. First and foremost, I think that's important. And really evaluating this and putting a lot of work into this. We know that this has not been an easy job. So it's very much appreciated, the work that you have done.
Yeah, the numbers, they make us all sad. They make me sad because they're never going to be big enough for what we need to do for our kiddos, and that's hard. And at the same time, I really appreciate the speed at which you are able to see that something happened and take accountability and share with us the news and start to develop what could happen next, because that's really important. The lack of delay there is a really good thing, so thank you for that. I was wondering, what are the things that in discovering, like, what are the lessons that we learn about how we can do things better here as a district? I'd like to potentially know a little bit more about, and then I'm afraid we don't have enough money to get to the very end. We're going to run out of gas, and I'm not sure the town will be able to fill up that tank or give us the battery's going to go dead. I don't know if they'll be able to jumpstart us again, right? And how are we going to make this work? Is also front and center for me. And I know that those are hard. You might not know the answers to that, but those are the very real problems and answers that we have to work with too. But I do trust that you will be and have been thoughtful about what comes next.
So to answer your question, what can we do better? So do you mean in terms of better, specifically about the non-encumbered money, or just in general, what we can do better?
Either, both.
Okay, so what we can do better is and we recognize this did come out of the audits that were happened in the district and the reports. We need to do better at our ability to use Munis in the way that it was set up to be done. We do have scheduled training between our staff and the town, and Kyle, the accountant for the town, will be part of that as well. And it's a little twofold. So yes, there was a mistake, and we need to be able to have assurances that those mistakes won't happen. But we also need to make sure that our software and our platform is working correctly as well. The payroll person from the town, Dawn, is looking into that for us. I did get an email before I came tonight. I haven't had a chance to read it because one would have thought that Munis would have also been able to trigger that there wasn't funding in order to generate those paychecks. So it looks like we've learned something, and there may have been a setting that we weren't utilizing correctly, either town school. I mean, it's a school's problem, but that we're going to address. And then in terms of what we can do better moving forward, it's the things that we're doing. It's, I think I mentioned that, we weren't, one of the reasons we don't know all of our expenses is because we weren't we didn't have contracts in place for some of the things that we have expenses for. So Tracy, our supervisor of accounts, has gone through the course for procurement, understanding what the procurement laws are. We have every PO this year, everything that comes our way, we're following all of the rules and laws in terms of contracts or signed agreements, or if it's a single source. I think the principals and some of the admin assistants will tell you I deny any PO that comes my way that doesn't have a contract attached to it. And they are going back, but it's been challenging. This has been longstanding, and so some of it is really going back and getting those. So we're doing that. So that's one of the ways that we can do better. And again, I think having a very collaborative and supportive relationship with the town is another way we can do better. It's a checks and balance. So we bring our budget sheet, the town runs their budget sheet, and so our goal is that they look the same. And we're getting closer to our budgets looking the same, so that we all agree that that's where the numbers are. And it comes from a place of wanting to support everybody. Other things that we're doing better at is really having an accounting of what our expenses might be, right? Both in special education and transportation, and within our school day, getting every person accounted for. And what I said before, what we have done now is we have set ourselves up to be able to put together an FY26 budget that will show the amount of money that we need to run the budget the way we are. It also will show that that's a lot of money. It's a lot more money than we are currently spending, and so then there will be other kinds of conversations about living within our means, or living within what we have been given. What are the things that are our priorities in the district? And I think that's a question that the school committee is going to have to talk about, and I know you will at your workshop. But what are our priorities? Because that's where we're going to have to put our money, into our priorities. In terms of going to the town, you're right. It is hard to keep going back, and eventually the well is going to be dry, or we're going to run out of gas. I've started to think about this in terms of, this wasn't an FY23-24 problem. This was an FY23-25 problem. And I believe that our town manager feels the same way, and I believe that our boards I believe that the select board and the finance board appreciates that we have put safeguards in place to detect our problem. And, and these monthly meetings are really allowing us to be proactive and to mitigate some of the deficit. So I believe that they will support us to the best of their ability, but also knowing that we have to do better in FY26, because we can't continue to ask the town this can't happen again.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Moskowitz.
The question I was going to ask before was, when you said that some of the not encumbered is special education tuition, would I be right in assuming that most of it is? It's just that there's some that isn't?
Yes, most of it is encumbered. Some that
Right.
isn't is the TOPS program. We have a partnership with North Andover, and North Andover has a partnership for their 18 to 22, and we have not encumbered all of the piece that we pay towards our portion of the share of that. And then pieces that may not be encumbered are anticipating tuitions that we don't know about yet.
So I guess I should just say to people who haven't followed it as closely that the fact that almost all of it is encumbered this year is way ahead of last year.
It is.
And so we should thank you and note that even though this is disappointing, it does reflect a lot of progress and hard work that you've made
That the district has
to
been
bring
making,
that
yes.
about. Is a fair? So one of the puzzles is, how does an expenditure occur that we weren't aware of? And this goes back to what I remember from working at the state. And I assume that when you said the software isn't working, my understanding is the way it's supposed to work, someone who is authorized to do so, like a principal, makes a decision to purchase something. And he or she then does a purchase order, and the system won't.
I'm just going to stop you for a minute because it's two separate things. So it's not
Okay.
expenses or purchase orders that have been an issue. The issue is that we did not accurately encumber the correct salaries for 7 employees, which now leaves us in this deficit. And unfortunately, like you were sort of saying, is that there's not money there, then the system should not allow that to be paid. It's most likely a setting issue where there was a glitch because there was some money that was put into that account.
Right.
So we're not quite sure why, but the reality is the truth is that we made the mistake, right?
So maybe I misheard you. I thought that part of the problem might be that someone managed to send a purchase order to a vendor without
No.
So the software is working as it's
Correct.
supposed to. Oh, okay, good. So looking at it as a whole, it seems to me like a fair summary is that between you and the manager, you have a solution in which the town has stepped forward and come up with a significant part of the gap, and therefore we will have to come up with some by cutting some of the stuff we otherwise would do. Which seems like it's a difficult situation, but everybody's sort of chipping in.
Right. And remembering that this is a projection for the end of the year, but we don't want to perpetuate the problem. But we may have to, and that's what I said, some of the things we may have to do is look at cutting and then decide what the intent of cutting is to save money, but what's the impact of that? And does the impact outweigh the intent?
But in the end, in a way, the town has to make that decision, doesn't it?
The town and the school committee.
Well, but we as a school committee can't appropriate money that isn't either appropriated to us or transferred.
No, you can't give yourself more money, but you have the ability to stop spending or
Right.
ask me to recommend cuts.
Yeah, I guess we're saying the same thing in different sorts of ways.
Okay, it's my turn, thank you. So, of course, thanks for the work, and having lived through this last year, it's just much better to hear it in October than in April. So I appreciate that, as we all do. A couple of just clarifying things here. When I look at the top, the status report here, right? Do I interpret this right, that expenses, some of available budget, 312, right? But salaries are minus 764. And I guess I'm trying to understand how the grand total gets arrived at here. Is it, maybe just to take us through the top?
So
of
what
this.
it is that what our deficit is offsets, and then what we have left is not, our deficit's larger than what we have left, so we're running in a deficit in salaries.
Right. So the way I'm looking at this is there's a 760 right now, to the best of your ability to predict. We look like we're short 764 in salaries.
Correct.
Do we look like we are above 312 in expenses? That's where I'm confused. The top row.
Yes.
So
But-
we would finish the year.
But we have other expenses. So we're finishing the year. If you put it all together, so at the end of the year, you put your salaries and your expenses together.
Yep.
If we just run like where we are right now, without factoring in encumbrances, we're already negative 451,000.
At this point in time. So that's a way to look at this column is this is as of today.
Correct.
Okay.
As
This is
of
not
today,
as of the end of the fiscal year.
No.
Okay. So the other numbers, the range of 2.5 to 3.5 is at the moment where you think we
What
would be
I'm
at the-
projecting if we continue on the course.
And so is it also correct that you can't see it up there, but
Sorry.
the bottom left table with non-encumbered salaries and expenses is what results cause, that's what will be in the 2.5 to 3.5,
Correct.
right?
And that's the list that Tracy and Dennis looked at today and verified what we have been spent, what we have spent on subs, what we have left on subs, what we anticipate
Okay.
spending on subs, what we anticipate spending on long-term subs, so that we could accurately say that range of 2.5 to 3.5.
Okay. So one other thing that I would worry about is are there still things we might not know?
We feel, and again, I have said this before, but
Yeah.
now that we've had an opportunity to have bills, we've had an opportunity to work closely with the finance director of the town, to go through our budget line by line, item by item, and to dig deeper into it. We do feel as though we have a fairly good handle on what is non-encumbered at this point in terms of both salaries and expenses, which is why I'm projecting the 2.5 to 3.5 million dollars.
I just want to understand.
you wanted-
it.
yep.
And I think my suggestion would be, right, that and you're probably doing this anyway, right, keeping kind of a log of the things we were discovering that were not, properly accounted for in whatever way that we're not. Just keeping a log so we don't lose that, right? Because that might serve two purposes. One is, A, it documents what you've learned, and B, it might uncover other things. Hopefully not, right? And then maybe one activity that you could work with, I forget his name, the fellow that you're,
John Massaro.
John, yeah, is maybe somebody can take a look at all of our contracts and just make sure that they add
The
up.
town has done that.
Oh, they have,
Yep.
okay.
And we are, the town is our checks and balances with all of our contracts.
So they feel pretty good that there's no surprises
Correct.
left in at least the existing contracts.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So first, thank you, Superintendent Lathrop, for not only the work that you're doing here, but for in bringing the information forward to us as you're finding it and working with the town. So thank you for doing that. It certainly makes it much more effective for us to be able to look at this and work through solutions together. So thank you. Question, just a couple of additional questions to make sure I understand kind of our negative amount, kind of the money we're spending that we're saying we're going to spend that we don't have.
Correct.
So it's the 2.5, the best case, I would call it best case, worst case, the 2.5 to 3.5. But you believe we should have these other funding sources, so these
These are
offsets.
fairly, with the exception of the pending a vote of the select board on Monday, all the others are guaranteed funding sources.
So the 2.5, does that really become 650?
Correct.
Okay, so it's where what with the best we know with the town approval. So really, the problem that we're talking, the money we're now spending that we do not have, range through the end of the school year is 650,000 to 1 million, 1.6 million.
Correct.
So that's the money that if we keep doing what we're doing, we are spending money we don't have. Is
Yes.
that- okay. So, question: kind of, what do we do for this school year? I know you had mentioned one of the things that and thank you again for bringing it forward, that there were salaries that weren't encumbered that are now encumbered, is one option to look and see, are there that equal number of salary? Do we need to look and see if there are that many positions that perhaps least impactful to our students that we need to look at and take out of the remaining year of the remaining budget? Like, what do we do at this point? Because we don't have money.
Right.
We
I
don't
think
have
those
it.
are things, I think, we need to continue to reduce our spending. All the building leaders and the department chairs have been doing that. We took 10% off of their budget, and there's not much left, to be honest with you. They're very small budgets, but we'll continue to do that. We are operating on essential items only. I think we do need to look at least impactful positions, and I can bring forth to the committee what we might consider to be the least impactful positions, and share with you what that would look like, and then also have share with you what the impact would be. That right, because even the least impactful will have some impact, but I do believe that we have a responsibility to do that, and to really scrub carefully and see, and both in administration and in teaching within our buildings, look at all of our positions. So I think those are the things that we can do. because I think I have shared before and talked about that largely our budget is made up of salaries. And so while we will continue to be prudent with our spending of expenses, it's not a large portion. But we will continue to be as responsible as we can and only look at essential items. And then also looking at if there are positions where we might be able to move a little bit. I shared with the administrative staff last week that, that I might be asking them to start looking at schedules again, and are we using all of our staff effectively, and are there ways that we can make some movement? Or if a new student, I think last year one of the things that we did was when a student moved into our district who needed some support, we didn't hire for that position. Instead, we looked at where were there areas that we could recalculate and moved a person from one building to another building. None of these are going to be easy. But we will look at all positions in district and see if there are ways that we can make reductions or cuts.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair, there's one thing I meant to ask and didn't, if that's all right. Your special education estimate, have you made some guess as to new students that might come to the district, or is that something that we would take out of, I think it's I think we had some sort of agreement with the Finance Committee that they would, certain money that used to go to us will go to them, and that it's understood that in that situation it's appropriate for us to then go to them and say the student arrived.
We have anticipated all that we know.
Right.
So we have anticipated in the non-encumbered expenses any tuitions that we believe may be coming up. And we've anticipated, that's what we've anticipated. Any tuitions that we believe that may be something that we have to plan for. I have not anticipated for people that may move into the district.
Do I remember right that there used to be a special ed contingency account?
There's
And
a
there was
stabilization fund, I believe, that the Finance Committee has, and I don't know that as accurately, so I don't want to misspeak. It's not as much as it was, but there is some money that we may have to go back to the Finance Committee and ask for.
And this was sort of agreed that in return for not having that money, it was understood that in that particular contingency, it was appropriate for us to come to them.
And ask them, yes, but it's less than what we asked for last year because we used the funds. Is that correct?
So we used to have a $750,000 stabilization fund, and there was rules about how much you could take at once and then how to refill it. Last year, the year before, we moved away from that through actions at town meeting, and so now that money sits in the Finance Committee reserve. It's $1.5 million, and it gets, whenever anything gets spent out of that, it gets reallocated every single year. So every town meeting, we've authorized another $1.5 million to keep that at 1.5 and to have that amount be there, with the understanding, I think it's a gentleman's agreement, or that's not a great word. I apologize for that.
It's okay.
It's gendered. That was bad.
Friendly.
A friendly agreement that for cases if a student were to move in and there was a need, that money could be used for that purpose, because that was what the stabilization fund was for. Was you have somebody move in, it's an unexpected expense.
So it's now part of the Finance Committee reserve, but that Finance Committee reserve may be needed for other things too, right?
Correct.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
So it's twice as much as the stabilization fund was, but covers
Other things too.
many more things.
Yeah. So that is something we ultimately may have to. Should we get new students, we could go to them and ask for that.
Then one other thing which I hesitate to ask, but if we lay somebody off, they're eligible for unemployment insurance. Is that right?
Correct.
And then we get billed for that.
Correct. That's why I was saying that we present for you the intent, right, to lay, if we lay somebody off, but what's the impact? The impact is unemployment insurance, perhaps, more students in a classroom, more students on a caseload, an activity or service that we can no longer provide.
Right, but I mean, it's sort of a catch-21. Even if we could figure out how to do without him or her for a little while, we're still paying some percentage of their salary.
Right, but I guess my point, and I think Ms. Cormier's, is that we have an obligation to go and look and then weigh our options and weigh whether or not it makes sense.
Right.
And then weigh our options. And then weigh whether or not it makes sense. And then weigh whether or not it makes sense. And then weigh our options. And then weigh whether or not it makes sense. And then weigh whether or not it makes sense. And then weigh whether or not it makes sense. And then weigh whether or not it makes sense. And then weigh whether or not it makes sense. And then weigh whether or not it makes sense. And then weigh whether or not it makes sense. And then weigh whether or not it makes sense. And then weigh whether or not it makes sense. And then weigh whether or not it makes sense. And then weigh whether or not it makes sense. And then weigh whether or not it makes sense. And then weigh whether or not it makes sense. And then weigh whether or not it makes sense. And then weigh whether or not it makes sense. And then weigh whether or not it makes sense. And then weigh whether or not it makes sense. And then weigh whether or not it makes sense. And then weigh whether or not it to move forward, and that would be a decision of the board.
And our contracts have very specific rules about what we need to,
Absolutely.
about the process and procedure we would then have to
Correct,
use.
correct.
At
Right.
least would give us,
Right.
options, right? Because
Right.
we are saying we are spending money we don't have.
Right.
So
But
what
like,
do we do?
Reminding, like, thinking about when I say the impact, so, it's hard, I don't want to use any kind of position, but I guess I could use mine, but that doesn't really make sense for the thing. But if I was to be laid off, or if you lay off someone like a music teacher, and I'm not saying that we're laying off a music teacher, I'm just trying to make a point. But if you lay off a music teacher, that may not be in the right building, but it's based on seniority, and so then another person would have to move, so then that's the impact and that's happening. So it's it's like a ripple effect, and those are the things that we're going to have to talk about.
I think to summarize it, you could say we don't get a one-to-one benefit, right?
No.
A financial benefit from.
I can't find where there may be something extra, and that might, or something that we could live
Right.
without, and just eliminate that because we don't know where, it doesn't work
Right.
out
There-
that way.
there- yep.
And I think it's one of those things that will help us to build our understanding as we look at these short-term solutions, and then really, as we quickly turn to FY26, because we're as you now, since you're able to accurately track this, we know we are spending a lot more money than we have and will likely get next year either.
Correct.
So as we make these decisions, we can figure out if this might be the first step, and then there's larger decision later to make. We don't know.
And that's also the benefit of knowing this now, because now we are starting to plan our FY26 budget, and we will be able to plan it more accurately than putting in a imaginary budget and then finding out it's not realistic in April.
And not that anyone has indicated this, and we all keep in mind that impact on students and impact on our teachers and our staffs, and that we're talking about real peoples and real families with real bills to pay and mortgages and rents and food for themselves too. And that's hard and sad.
Yeah.
Very sad.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Thank you. Going on to the chair updates. We did have an executive session where we voted on the MOA that the stipend committee, NADA, and NAPS, thank you, were able to negotiate. Mr. Hicks, will you speak more on that MOA?
Yeah, and thank you to Ms. Lathrop was part of the negotiations too, and thank you to the unions for working with us last year as a result of the contract negotiations that led to our larger collective bargaining agreement with both the teaching assistants and largely with the teachers. We agreed to create a joint labor management committee. I think that's what it was, to talk about stipends. As we know, stipends for athletic coaches and for activity leaders had not been changed in the better part of 10 years. And what was once an okay stipend for our coaches and our leaders of various student activities was now grossly below where they needed to be. And it is something that we needed to address. So we came together, started work last year, and we came to an agreement a couple weeks ago. That's been ratified by the teachers union. We voted on. It stipulates that there's an increase, a very small increase this year in the stipends for coaches and those activity leaders, and a larger one for the next couple of years. Thank you to NADA for agreeing to help fund that very modest and small increase this year. We appreciate the cooperation on that, knowing that we literally have no money. If you start looking back under the couch cushions again, so that was important. Thank you. Part of it was addressing the lack of parity in not having a choral director at the high school, in creating that position, and then the next 2 years see larger increases to make get to where we need to be to make a good step towards that. And by putting it into the next couple of years, we're able to budget better for those things. Yeah, that's where we're at.
Okay, and as I mentioned, we did vote for it in executive session. It is customary that we do also vote in public session in the way that we did also vote in executive session. So.
Do I make a motion?
We can make this.
Do you have the contract?
No, I don't.
What do you want?
The contract.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement between the North Andover School Committee and the North Andover Teachers Association and North Andover Professional Support Association regarding stipends for the next 3 years, the remainder of the collective bargaining agreement that we have in place.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion?
Yes, just given our budget discussion that we just had, and the fact that we are 600, at best, 600, writing checks, for $650,000 or $1.6 million that we don't have, how much additional funds are we talking about for this year that we don't have? Did I ask that correctly? It's basically, we have no money. So, absolutely, and I did vote, I agree this is the right thing to do. But it's hard because this is the right thing to do, but we don't have money to pay it.
The impact to our budget is, I think, approximately no more than $2,000.
But $2,000 we don't have. So why it seems small, it would be as if at home I'm buying $2,000 worth of stuff and I don't have money in the bank to pay it. So it's the same. Okay, but we're doing the right thing. It's the right thing for our teachers and our students, but we don't have the money this year or next year at this point.
Right. So you are to vote the same way that you voted in executive session. Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
And I had also voted yes, and that was signed by myself and Ms. Lathrop. Okay. We are moving on. At our last meeting, we did hear 2 level 3 grievances that were brought before us. Due to timing, we were not able to have the committee discussion and determination on those. So we do also have with us town council. I did just want to make just a brief opening on this before we go into it. I know we had some additional documentation submitted, so thank you for us to review. Ms. Burns had also submitted a follow-up letter. And one of the things that I just wanted to acknowledge and follow up on, because there was a concern, and one of the things that Ms. Burns had brought up was saying, she had stated that she was worried that our decision would have a negative long-term effect on the collective bargaining process, as well as a serious deterioration in the strong relationships the unit has built with the administration over the last several years. And I just wanted to address that. I hope that our decision here tonight will not have a negative effect on any collective bargaining or any deterioration of the relationships built between the unit, the administration, or the school committee. I don't believe that anything like that would help us accomplish anything in the future. Our goal is to be fair and objective, and although everyone may not agree with the outcomes, no matter which way is decided here tonight on either grievance, it's simply a contract question. And what that means is that both sides will want to work together amicably to resolve any contract ambiguity at the next bargaining session. And that would involve working together and not to hold any hostility. And that will never resolve anything. Neither side wants to be in this position. And I can absolutely guarantee that. So I think as we go into this, like I said, we had the 2 grievances, and I think what we need to we'll do the first one on the Idaho State grievance. And what we really need to clarify is what we are voting on, what this grievance is actually about. And Town Council, do you want to make a statement so that we are very clear on what the issue is, on what we would be saying yes or no to?
Sure. The committee's review is of the actions of the superintendent, and to ensure that the superintendent is working within the contract. And so, in the event that there is a grievance that the superintendent or the district is violating a contract, the provisions of the CBA, then that's the narrow issue that the committee is to undertake. I understand that there are times where it might be difficult to separate those issues, that they somehow merge together a bit, but the focus should be on, is the superintendent following the provisions of the contract?
So just to be clear, our question is, did the superintendent violate the contract when she denied pre-approval of the Albion course when she determined that it did not meet the criteria necessary for credit for advancement?
That's correct. That is the narrow issue before the committee.
Okay, so it is not our determination of whether that particular course meets the criteria. That is not for us to determine.
Right. Did the superintendent follow the terms of the contract in taking the action that she did?
Thank you. So this was, and the reason I wanted to clarify that is because I think we kind of got caught up in that issue of the course itself versus the contract issue. And I want to make sure that we as a committee are keeping those as separate issues, because the course itself is not what is at issue here. And it's not what we should be focusing on. It's, did the superintendent have the authority to state that she could deny it, that she had that authority to state that it didn't meet criteria. So that was something that, when I left that at our last meeting, I had to work personally through that. So I wanted to make sure everybody else was clear on that as well. So I'd like to open up any other questions or discussion on the singular issue in and of itself. We are specifically looking, it's Article 20 of the contract, Section D, and I think it's subsections 2 through 2, and I think it's mainly 2 and 3. Is that correct? Town Council, is that correct? Section 2, subsections 2 and 3.
Yes, I believe those are the sections.
So which article, Madam Chair?
Article 20.
Page 34. That makes it easier.
Thank you. And then the section?
So, Section D, so we have 2, teachers may complete college and university level courses and/or graduate programs to advance on the teacher salary schedule. The superintendent and/or their designee must pre-approve the courses and programs in order to be eligible for advancement. Course approval and advancement is based on the criteria that the course is aligned with system-wide goals and that is appropriate for the teaching assignment. If the superintendent or their designee rejects a course because it does not fit the criteria, the teacher will receive notification that his or her course was not approved. So the issue is whether or not Ms. Lathrop violated the contract when she determined that it did not meet the criteria and rejected the course for credit.
So I have a question on that exact point.
Yes.
I thought that part of the disagreement was about the words college and university level courses. And as I recall, what the superintendent said, this wasn't a college or university level course. It was a different kind of course, a professional development course. So that makes quite a difference.
I think what that would fall under is if it fits the criteria. And Town Council, am I interpreting that correctly, if it fits the criteria?
Yes. So as I was saying, it's at times it becomes somewhat hard to separate these. If, for example, there was a grievance that was claiming that the superintendent was arbitrarily denying. In this particular case, the language does refer to the college and university level courses or graduate programs. to advance on the teacher salary schedule. So you wouldn't have to put on blinders as to the types of courses or the course that from the institution that the superintendent did not give approval for, and that non-approval is consistent with the CBA that was negotiated between the parties.
Point of information, Madam Chair. I feel like we should also be taking into account number 4, D, like D4, because it indicates that what that says to me is graduate credit from degree granting institutions, okay, would be recognized for advancement. And my interpretation of doing a lot of research on this subject and on this Albion Center is it is not a degree granting institution.
So
It is a professional development program, not a degree. To me,
Okay.
it says right there, it's not a. I think that's relevant. It's not a degree granting institution. I just think that's a point that people should
And the
consider.
courses don't give graduate credit.
I think
Just a question to council, should we
Yeah.
consider
So,
that?
question: Can I
That's-
take that? Am I interpreting that?
Should we be considering section 4,
Yeah, that's right.
subsection 4?
You don't have to put blinders on. You can, in fact, consider the facts that have been brought before you when answering the more narrow question.
So the more narrow question is, did the superintendent use the correct criteria in not approving these courses? And for me, if the criteria is that they have to be graduate level, I mean, the whole point of the clause there, and I think the intent sort of matters, even though it's a narrow thing, is that it's to take graduate level courses, and the schedule is linked to graduate level credits. And if the course or the credit can't be used towards a graduate degree, then I think the criteria that I'd have to side with the superintendent did not approve correctly. And that doesn't mean that a teacher needs to be in a degree program or use them towards a degree, but in the abstract, they would have to be applicable to a degree. And these aren't. So I would have to say that my opinion is, and I'll vote that the superintendent did act in the, how do I say it right? Acted appropriately in denying pre-approval of these courses.
Okay. Mr. Moskovich, did you want to?
No, I was
Make
just,
any-
I appreciated the way Mr. Hicks said that. That's exactly what I would say.
Okay. Mr. Brown, did you want to add anything to that?
Right. Well, that's yes, because in my case, particularly in item 4 is what says to me that the superintendent acted properly. Right. That because it does not, it's not a degree granting institution. These are not courses that could be applied to a degree. Therefore, the superintendent's decision is correct, in my opinion.
Okay. Ms. Cormier, did you want to add anything?
No, I don't want to add anything, but I would just ask, is there any additional information that we didn't hear last week or we weren't sent that we should consider when we go, as we make this decision? I don't think there is, but I'm just asking the question.
And you received the materials that
Yep.
were forwarded to us.
Read everything, yep.
So I will say from as I looked at this, so I myself decided to sign up for a class. So for just creating an account, I was offered a $200 credit. So that meant I could take a course for free. To create an account, I had to enter my name and address, create a username and a password, and that allowed me to register for a course. I was thoughtful in my selection. I wanted to select one that I thought would be beneficial to our teachers. So I selected evidence-based learning and studying strategies. And I hit the button to register. I received the email. I needed to log into the course, and I was ready to begin. However, I found it puzzling that at no point did Albion ask if I already had a degree. They didn't ask for prior transcripts. They didn't ask for undergraduate work. They didn't ask for my graduate work. They didn't ask for my employer. They did not ask if I had a high school diploma. They did not even ask for my date of birth. I began the course, which included 8 modules. I was able to complete each module with effort in about 20 minutes, which included reading a few articles and taking a quiz. As a faculty member at a law school where I teach legal research and writing to first-year law students, I would be embarrassed if this was the work my students were doing to achieve graduate credit, course credit. So that was my personal experience logging into that. That's what I can share. So as far as, does that meet the criteria that is outlined in the contract? As far as, is it a graduate credit from a degree granting institution? I'm not sure how I could get graduate credit when it didn't even ask me if I had a high school diploma. So is there any other discussion?
Do we make a motion? Do we vote? Is that the proper, town council, what's the appropriate course of action for us to take as a committee?
Yeah, so the only other thing that I would add is anything that you considered in reaching this decision that had been presented formally before you last week that you may or may not have discussed right now during your deliberation, but if there was information, say a packet from the superintendent or the superintendent's testimony or testimony from the union, whatever it is you are going to consider in making your decision, I think that should be specifically referenced. There has been discussion, obviously, so far, but I think just before making a motion, there should also be included in that motion a description of everything that you're relying on in making that decision regarding the evidence that came before the committee the last time that you met.
Okay, understood. So at our last meeting, we started out with testimony given by NADA, primarily through their representative and through some of their membership.
To the PR and our committee chair.
Yes.
We heard testimony from Ms. Lathrop. We were forwarded documents. Do we have copies of those documents?
You do.
After the meeting to review. Oh, they are in here. That included a letter from Anna Lane, Director of Policy from the Albion Center. It's dated October 14th. We had, looks like this is a course completion for social emotional learning for Albion, for Julianne Irving. We have a professional development academic transcript, has Idaho State University at the top with course descriptions, course title, grade and credits. The name has been blocked out. It is dated 9/8/2021. We have another letter from Gabrielle Paxton from the Albion Center. She is, I'm sorry, the Albion Center coordinator. And then we have a Idaho State University College of Education history. It lists a history, accreditation, professional development, credit detail. Course numbers prior to August 17th, 2022. Course numbers beginning August 17th, 2010. Course numbers beginning January 1st, 2018. Grading system, transfer grading policy, professional development transcript, the test for authenticity. And I believe that is everything.
Madam Chair, I would suggest also the minutes from last meeting would capture our discussion around this as well.
Thank you. We can include the minutes from last meeting and the minutes from this meeting.
And there was one document that I was looking at too that I want to just make sure that's considered. It was the letter from Superintendent Lathrop dated September 6th to Denise Coleman, Vice President Grievance, which outlined in one of the, it was dated September 6th. One of the things it mentioned was Superintendent Lathrop's conversation with the Director of Graduate Studies at Idaho State University confirmed that the offerings are not college or university level courses. So I just want to make sure that
Is that the original grievance?
it was the response.
Denial?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to make sure that's.
And then I'd also like to include the original grievance letter. The level 3 grievance. And then we also did receive an email from Juliet Darman a couple days ago.
Yes.
We can include that. Does that include everything?
That's
As I-
that's the things I've considered. Yeah, I think so. And the contract itself, I mean, does that
Yes,
go in? Right?
yes, and the contract. Is there any other documents for consideration or any other discussion? Okay, so the question is, well, we put it in the form of a motion, Town Council?
I would put it in the form of a motion that, based on all of the evidence that was submitted before the committee that you have captured just now, whatever the finding of the committee is.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to, that the committee finds that the superintendent acted appropriately in not pre-approving the courses from Albion, the Albion Professional Development Center, citing all the evidence that we've just named.
Could I ask if it would be helpful to add to Mr. Hicks' motion, because the committee finds her finding that these are not graduate level courses to be persuasive. That's really.
I think that's appropriate.
Hey, is that all right, Mr. Hicks?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Second?
Okay. Any other discussion? All right.
So, sorry to interrupt. So just a quick question. With respect to this motion, I would also suggest something with respect to specifically what action, therefore, you are taking with respect to the level 3 grievance coming before you.
Is any other action necessary? And is like just.
I just mean, what therefore we are doing X with the level 3 grievance.
Do we? Is that?
Are we denying it?
Denying it?
Is that what we're doing?
That would be the motion.
Right.
So like.
Right.
If that's the motion you're
Yeah.
making.
Yes, and the grievance is dismissed or denied.
Denied. Right.
Got it. Thank you. Can we add that in? Do I have to restate it?
Probably be helpful.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that the committee finds that Ms. Interim Superintendent Lathrop acted appropriately in denying pre-approval of the Albion Center professional development courses for advancement on the salary scale because it did not, because the criteria was not met according to the contract in section D4 and 2, and that the
That these be graduate level courses.
yep, and that these be and that the grievance is dismissed.
Denied.
Denied.
I will second that one.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. That grievance is denied. So we will move on to the second grievance. All right, and to be clear, this grievance
What is? Do we have a narrow question again?
yes, we do. This one wording is a little trickier, I think. So did the superintendent violate the contract when she paid the TA's holiday time at their prorated time rather than as a full-time employee rate? Is that worded correctly, Town Council?
You're mute.
You're muted. We can't hear you.
Tasty glasses.
Would you mind reciting yours again? I was just looking at the actual grievance.
So did the superintendent violate the contract when she paid the TA's holiday time at their prorated time rate that rather than at a full-time rate?
Yes. That's
Okay.
Is there? And what is the? This would be Article.
Yeah, so this is Article 2, Section 6, subsection B. Page 6.
I think also is
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think on page 22 it's Article X1. That's 11.
So, hold on.
Article 11, Section 5.
There's also Article 8, Section 2.
Yes.
Thank you. There's several.
Article, what was it, Joe? Article 11?
What's the page number?
Oh, it's the same one. I'm sorry. So we can just do our page 12, Article 8, Section 2.
Yeah.
right. And that's what's listed in their grievance.
Thank you.
That's,
Sorry,
that's
okay.
the violation that they are claiming.
There is a reference to it on page 22.
Yep.
Also.
So am I right in saying, Town Council, that the issue we're talking about is, the narrow issue is about holiday pay and holiday pay only? That's what we are determining.
That's, yes.
Thank you for that clarification.
And is the question that holiday pay for employee 0.8 or 0.9 employees, that holiday pay should be paid at 0.8 or 0.9 or paid at full-time rates?
Correct.
Is that the question?
Yes.
Okay, so it
Correct.
equates to being paid, so if an employee who's 0.8 has a set salary for days that they work, but then if they take a vacation day, what's before us, would they make more money on that vacation day? Did I get it wrong? What did I-
Right.
It's not, it's a holiday,
Holiday.
not vacation, yeah,
Holiday.
holiday.
Right.
Was everything
And-
else I said correct other
What-
than holiday?
I'm sorry, what was that?
So I just wanted to make sure that I understood kind of the rest of what's before us. So it's that employees who are at 0.8, 0.9, what's before us is when they when they have a holiday, are they paid at their 0.8, 0.9 rate that they would be for any other day that they work? or are they paid at the full rate, the 1 versus the 0.9? That's what we're looking at, correct?
Holiday pay.
The holiday pay.
Correct.
Okay.
Per the terms of the
Per
contract.
the contract.
Could I ask town council a question? It seems to me this is confused by the fact that they each day they work is either 100%, 0%, or 50%. So if the holiday occurs on a Monday, they would lose a whole day's worth of pay. And if the holiday occurs on a Friday and they're a 0.8 employee, they wouldn't lose anything. And so we have it's almost like an arithmetic question. What we're saying is, because it's easier to just do the 0.8s. So if we're going to always give you 80% of holiday pay, because the odds are, I guess, 1 in 5 that the holiday would have occurred on a Friday. In fact, it actually occurs on a particular day. I understand the contract isn't worded that way, but it sure would have been easier to just say, whatever the employee would have missed, we will pay 100% of. And using this 0.8 or 0.9 to actually just can't do that.
It would have been easier, but it doesn't.
No, I understand that. So then the question is, knowing that, does that shed any light on this? Oh, and then combined with the fact that actually they're paid for a few more minutes every week than they
That's not
actually
the-
work,
But yeah,
which is
that's
not
an issue.
relevant.
Not part of it.
Not a- yeah,
No, but
not
it
an issue.
was in there. It was,
But that's not part of the grievance.
I understand.
I think, and if I'm focused on the narrow thing about Section 8, Article 8, Section 2, that members be paid 12 holidays per year. It seems very clear to me. And I think the point of holiday pay is to take the, like, I have to think about in my mind then what does holiday pay mean? Is that it takes the place of what would have been earned if that day was worked. So if I was scheduled that day and I was supposed to make $95, then I should get, my holiday pay would be the same as it always was, would be $95. And that's going to be a different amount because different employees make different amounts, right? Not all making the same, like, because it's based on experience. But I do, like, so I feel like in terms of like what we mean by full, it's you get your full amount that you should get that day, because even though you're not working, it's a holiday and you have the day off, you get the full amount, which would be your normal hourly rate for the number of hours. And that seems logical in my mind, and then the question I'm wrestling with is that what the contract says?
So,
And I'm struggling.
so when I'm looking at the contract as a whole, I'm also looking at Article 2, Section 6. So Article 2 is recognition. Article 6 talks about, says the North Andover School District can hire for part-time teaching assistant positions when necessary, this is what we're talking about, right? So, because they're not full-time, so this says employees hired into a part-time position will be afforded the same rights and benefits of a full-time position, but paid time off accruals and payouts will be prorated to match the part-time FTE equivalency. Now, I know that I know Ms. Burns had made the argument that this was put in there to address temporary part-time TAs. However, that's addressed in Article 5, subsection B, that temporary teaching positions are not covered under this contract. So that's where I get stuck too, because I'm looking at the contract as a whole,
Yeah.
and that seems to be that seems to me answer the question.
Well, it says that in I'm sorry, I just got distracted. It says in that 6B on page 6, employees hired into a part-time position before the same rights and benefits of full-time positions. Even if we just take that, because I feel like the intent of the second clause there is something else, but if we take that, like the rights and benefits of full-time position is that whether or not I work this day that's a holiday, I get the same full amount that I should have gotten. And it's weird. To me, it's weird that a holiday pay would be more than that for those workers, because in essence, they're getting either 10 or 20% more pay for those days that other workers are not getting. Everyone else, if they're only getting if they're a 1.0, they're getting their amount, and that's it. These workers, by that argument, would get their amount plus some, which doesn't seem to be fair either. Because they're getting more for this one, where it should just be the full amount that you would normally get paid.
So you're saying the benefit of a full-time employee is they get holiday pay. That's the benefit at what they get paid.
At the full amount they should make that day regardless.
Whereas maybe a part-time employee may not get holiday pay at all.
No.
Right, or that gets prorated, or they don't earn as much, or whatever. But a full-time employee, if I don't work, I get that full amount. And same with the sick days or vacation, or whatever it is. If I don't work, I get that full amount for that day, so that my paycheck doesn't change. So if I'm working the 29 and a quarter hours at $37.26 a hour, I should get $10.89.86 a week before taxes and all are taken out. And that if there is on the week of November 11th, even though I'm not working on November 11th because it's a holiday, I should still get that $10.89.86 that week before taxes are taken out. I mean, that to me is what we mean by full benefit. You get the full amount that you get every other day.
That you would work if you had worked that day.
Madam Chairman, I wonder if Mr. Hicks has put his finger on a possible solution, which is if what we did was pay them the same every week regardless there was a holiday, wouldn't that solve the problem?
But right now what we need to figure out is, I understand what you're saying, but we need to figure out, with what the contract is now, was there a violation?
But
we're not looking for a solution. We're saying, was there a violation?
Well, but suppose...
I mean, it'd almost be one and the same.
Yes, I mean, I guess I would be willing to say that what we do now doesn't meet what we'll call the Hicks standard.
Oh, great.
Which is... but under the Hicks standard, which not only makes sense, but is simple, right? You just say, your paycheck every week will not depend on whether there's a vacation.
Holiday.
And so...
Holiday.
I'm sorry. I
Holiday
said corrected. But if we... You're the lawyer, I'm not. But so as a non-lawyer, it seems to me that if we institute something which clearly is in the spirit of what it says, as we don't want you to be affected by the holiday, can we regard that as a solution to the
So what you're saying is you want to clarify the contract, which can be done at a later date. That's what we're not doing right. That's not what this is about.
In this limited instance, the law is not necessarily helpful.
I have a question then for town council. Whereas on the other one where we dismissed it and the union now has the right to take it to a level 4 through the labor board and all that, what are our other options in that are our only options either to either approve or dismiss, or is there something in between that we can go to? What are the things what can we do? Is my question.
Right. So, this has been brought before the committee for action. You could take action tonight if you were in a position to do that, but perhaps depending on if there was a solution that the committee and the superintendent felt was potentially appropriate, the superintendent could always go back and continue to try to work it out. So, in other words, the committee could, if it was in a position, ultimately, when these things are coming forward, a decision needs to be rendered. But I think a decision could still be rendered so that part is done. But maybe a suggestion that if there is a way for the superintendent to continue to work with the union to try to come to a resolution, that might be an option that isn't necessarily before the committee at this point, but is remains a possibility.
So what
I mean,
could-
I don't know if the superintendent has any other ideas of.
So I just want to clarify, what could happen is the committee could render a decision, but I'd say in lieu of, or the union could come and say, rather than taking this to level 4, how about we see if we can work this out?
Right.
Okay, so that
Yep.
is an option, despite
Yep.
whatever we decide at this moment.
And
Right.
Madam Chair, I think one of my struggles is I think I have an idea of what would be the fair way to do the paying. Right? And I don't yet know if, I don't know if that's what the contract says the paying is supposed to do, how the paying is supposed to happen. And I'm in conflict between those two things. I certainly can read it in a way that says of what should happen, and I guess then the question is whether there has to be then whether or not the superintendent did those things or did not do it correctly. I'm wrong. I'm confused too. So
No,
it's okay.
I have a question to my fellow committee members. Are any of you seen anything in this contract that says that holiday pay should be more than any other day worked pay? I don't see that here anywhere. Like and that's what does anybody see that?
I was going to go to that point. I've done a lot of commercial agreements in my life, and whether you got to ultimately comes down to what does the paper say, right?
Exactly.
And whether I like it or not doesn't matter, okay? And whether I think so I read Article 8, Section 2, holiday pay. It says it identifies dates when different unit members will be receiving 12 paid holidays per year. It just says that, 12 paid. It doesn't say how they're paid or at what rate they're paid. It just says there's 12 paid holidays. Then I go back to Part 6 of Article 2, Section 6, and it says employees hired into a part-time position. And both of these are part-time positions. Okay. Are they not part-time positions?
This is a committee discussion.
Right. So to me, they're part-time positions. They're less than 1.0 time. Okay. Employees hired into a part. If I'm wrong about that, I'd like to be corrected. But the way I read it, employees hired into a part-time position will be afforded the same rights and benefits of a full-time position, but paid time off accruals, holiday pay is paid time off, right? And payouts will be prorated to match the part-time FTE equivalency. So based on what I see here, it's very simple. They get paid at 0.8 of what a full-time person would be for the holiday, or 0.9 if they're a 0.9. I don't really see a conflict. Again, I'm not discussing what's, somebody may have intended or whatever, but what we have in front of us, in my mind, is pretty clear. I don't see, and I mean, I've looked at this, I don't see anything else that addresses that. It says that the salary, the holiday pay is captured in the salary schedule. Okay, it is. It's just noted that how the salary schedule is based on how many hours per day and how many days per year. It's silent on all the other points.
Mr. Brown, I think we'd have to, and whether or not they're full or part-time employees, we'd have to go to Article 4.
Okay.
Workday, work year, page 7, number 2. A full-time unit member is one who is scheduled for all the contracted building hours for the respective building as listed in the chart below, inclusive of lunch and a break. And in the chart below, and this is about the ABECC, correct, Superintendent? Mm-hmm. They're there for the hours specified in that chart. Part-time employees would be people who are there less than the hours listed on page 8.
Okay, so then these folks
which
are
is
not...
a different, right, so these hours are different than, for TAs, they're different than teacher hours, and that's true.
Okay.
Teachers work the extra time on those days, on Friday specifically, to meet their contractual obligations, but the 0.9 and 0.8 are scheduled a little differently. But since they work the building, I'm thinking out loud, I'm not saying this is truth.
Right.
Building hours, the daily hours are specified then that they are considered a full-time employee.
Okay.
Although I still go back to my point before that. If you're not working because it's a holiday, you get the full amount that you would have gotten that day.
Okay, so.
That's the full benefit.
I'm struggling with that too, but can I ask town council a question? So as Mr. Hicks points out, Article 4, workday/work year, Section 2, defines a full-time unit member,
Yep.
right? And
The .8s and .9s are that.
so my previous statement then is incorrect, right? These folks are full-time.
Mr. Brown, you're not speaking.
He's speaking to.
I was talking to.
Oh, okay, I thought you were looking there.
I could turn this way if you like.
My apologies.
Yeah, she's over there, looking over my shoulder. No. So I stand corrected then. Then these folks are considered by this contract, by this paper in front of us, they're considered full-time.
Yeah.
People.
All right,
Okay,
understood.
Thank you. Okay. Well, now I'm mixed. Now I'm conflicted.
But it's a question of they're still working .8, .9.
Right.
Does the holiday pay get paid at .8, .9?
I think I don't know. To me, it seems like the struggle we're having here is the contract has conflict.
Well, and
yeah.
Well, I think I feel like the contract is clear. Then the question, and I don't know if I'm allowed to ask this, is back to the superintendent: is that when you are paying them, are you paying them the full amount that they would have earned on any other day, or less than that? I guess this is the payroll question the math that we need to know. Go back to how it was used. Am I allowed to ask the question, town council, of the superintendent at this point?
Yeah, I mean, even though the hearing is over, you can always ask additional information from the superintendent.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to break any rules.
Yep.
So the question was, what are they being?
How is their holiday? Can you remind us how their the pay for the holidays is being calculated?
The pay for the holidays is currently being calculated at a prorated based on the FTE.
And are they getting a reduction in amount that they would normally get for those days, or just the same amount you get otherwise?
So potentially, yes. I think that I think that is the reason why we may want to, depending on your decision, and that the contract is vague. And I think you have said several times whether it's the work day. So you could look at the holidays, what day the holiday falls. You know, I'm going to becoming a solution person now, but the day that the holiday falls on, if that's a day that you would typically come to work, then you get paid what you would. So if you work 6.5 hours, which is a full day, and the holiday falls on that day, you get paid 6.5 hours. If the holiday falls on a Friday, I'm just going to use a Friday because that's the day that either somebody doesn't work or somebody works half time. If the holiday falls on a Friday, you don't typically work on a Friday, so you don't get paid for that holiday. Or if you work half day, you get paid half of that holiday.
But you get the full amount that you normally would get.
You get the full amount that you would normally get.
Which in some cases could be nothing.
Correct. I mean, that is if I'm going towards a solution. If we want to, and I'm willing to do that, if that's what you want, and that's what they want us to, after you render a decision, go back and if it's still an opportunity to look at that before.
All right, I'd like to call a short recess. I'd like to have a private conversation with town council.
Sure.
I have a question. Town council, I'm going to give you a quick call.
Sure thing.
All right, we are back from our recess. Just to give everyone an update, I had spoken with town council to see if there was an option to almost like see if there was a way to suspend our decision, to see if there was a way to be able to work this out. There's been a request that we do from the union that we do go ahead and render a decision. So,
Sorry, a request from the union
that we do render a decision tonight. Okay. And then, hopefully maybe at some point, however we decide, in the future, maybe some other resolution will come into play.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
If we were to deny the grievance, the solution is the solution supposed to be then the one that was proposed by the union, or then do we have to get to work? If we were to accept the grievance, then is there work to do in terms of like resolving it, or does it become like what the union's proposed solution is?
So if we were to accept the grievance, we'd be accepting the holiday pay at 1.0 pay of a full-time employee.
Okay.
That's what that would mean.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
I have a clarification, or maybe it's just to help me understand. When you calculate pay, we pay everybody every 2 weeks, do we?
Yes.
And so for most people, whether there's a holiday within that 2 weeks or not is totally irrelevant to the amount they receive.
The holiday pay is factored into the overall salary already.
Oh, I see. All right. So it's sort of an annual amount that's put in.
Correct.
Okay, I see. And that's why it has to be prorated. And that's why it's hard to make it depend on what happened that week.
Correct.
Thank you. Although, wait a minute, it's low. Well, with most employees, you don't actually add it in, right? You just say your pay is so much. Is it a week? We never we don't normally look at how many days they work, right? We just say
It depends if you're a salary employee or if you're an hourly employee. So a salary employee is it's a salary and it's factored in. Teaching assistants are paid by the hour.
Oh.
But we
Okay.
we calculate their hours that we anticipate them working every week. So they should be able to anticipate a stable paycheck. They don't punch a time clock, and that we don't, so we don't, they don't send in a timesheet. So we calculate it based on what we contract with them to work.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. But when the contract was negotiated, the vacation pay was included into the salary. Sorry,
Into the
now I'm
hourly
saying
rate.
it. The holiday pay was incorporated into the salary table.
Into the
Therefore, the hourly
rates.
It's in the
To be
hourly
honest,
So it's
rate.
in the
No, it's
the
in the-
No, if you do the
table
math,
It's in
it's
the
in math.
table.
that's at the appendix to the contract.
Correct. The hourly rate is what those employees would make as that step. So if they were to do something else outside of their normal workday, that's what they would get, that's their hourly rate. The vacation time is included in that salary schedule based on a 1.0 salary. So that money is factored in to that overall salary piece. I mean, it's tricky because you're talking about hourly employees, and then the contract was accepted with a salary that if you work this, if you're an hour, you get paid this amount per hour, but if you're a full-time employee, this is what it will equal, and the holiday time is factored into that 1.0.
So they're paid only for the hours they worked with an hourly rate that is built up because of the vacation.
Holiday.
No,
The holidays, thank you.
their hourly rate is always their hourly rate. What the contract shows is their hourly rate with the idea, the premise that they work 100% of a full-time employee. And then it shows a salary that this is what you can anticipate you'll make at the end of the year if you get paid as a 1.0. And that salary includes the holiday pay.
The salary number.
The salary number includes the holiday pay. My premise of all, I don't know if you want to hear this, but my premise all along has been that's what you budget for a 1.0.
So if we look at Appendix A1, when we look down, we're looking at 194 days because it's including 12 holidays.
So can I ask a question? So the number in this table, the salary number, is just a simple math equation, right? It's taking
Yes.
that hourly rate, multiplying it by 100 and, I guess, 94.
Yeah,
Correct.
I did the math.
6.5
earlier.
So
hours
it's
per
simply
day,
it's simply an
194
equation,
days.
right?
Correct.
So when a person works a week that has a holiday in it, what does the pay stub say?
It doesn't, it
Doesn't
doesn't
say.
do that. So it's
It's just-
assuming that everybody's working every holiday, and it's assuming that the pay scale shows what a 1.0 person would make.
Okay.
My reasoning is that if you, and it was strictly it's budgeting. If you budget for a 1.0, if you have somebody that works 0.9, you budget for a 0.9 with the assumption that it's already been factored into the salary scale. So therefore, when you take 0.9 of a 1.0, that's what the total amount should be. And that's where the discrepancy lies.
Got it.
And somewhere in the contract is the term prorated.
Somewhere in the contract is the word prorated, and also somewhere in the contract is the wording that Mr. Hicks pointed out, that what full-time looks like. I think, sort of what the chair was saying, that there's a lot of discrepancies, ambiguities within the contract that contradict, which make it a challenging situation. My decision was based on what I know about finances, and if this is much is budgeted for a 1.0, 0.9 of that equals this.
Yeah, and it was the union's position that in an effort to negotiate a higher salary without putting it in the salary table, the holiday was separate as a full-time 1.0.
But the word prorated is still in the.
But that's for part-time employees. That whole section is about part-time. And
Right, and
These
we
are part-time.
They're not
no,
according to the contract.
when we
Not
looked
by the
at
definition
full-time.
here.
According to
Yeah.
the contracts, next session, they are full-time.
Right.
That's where it's confusing.
Yeah.
I'm very much at a loss, Madam Chair. Right,
But we do have to render a decision.
yeah, and
Can I ask a question of legal counsel?
You can.
Do you have an opinion on how this contract reads as to which method is correct?
are you allowed to share that opinion with us?
Right. Right. As your counsel, if we had a discussion, it would be back in executive session.
Okay.
I mean, you're asking all the right
Okay,
questions, and you're taking a look at it. I'm mindful that there are allegations that the union brought forward. Also, where if I understood their position correctly, what they're saying really is putting aside whether the contract, whether there's ultimate clarity or not in the contract, which obviously the committee has discussed. So assume that there was absolute clarity in the contract. What they also are alleging, as I understand it, is that what was negotiated and the understanding of the language and the intent of the negotiation was something quite specific that may not have been accurately captured in the contract. Now, 99.9% of the time, unless there's some blatant ambiguity, a reviewing party is still going to just stick with the contract, unless a contract has points within it that are contradictory and then force you to into taking outside evidence beyond, as has been discussed by the committee, the four corners of those documents.
Madam Council, if, speculation now, if we were to deny and the union were to use the process to then again go to the Board of Labor, they would be able to present at that all the negotiation notes and all the things and their understanding of how things were written, correct? Like that could be part of their presentation?
Yeah, I mean, that
would be their prerogative.
Position. That's their position. Our position may be different, and
Right.
likely would, but, yeah.
So my struggle is I think, strictly speaking, that I would lean towards affirming the grievance. But my problem is, well, I think there was both sides misread the contract in different ways, and I don't know what to do with that. I don't know what that means. I think the reading of the contract from the superintendent might not be completely accurate, but I also don't think the reading of the contract from the union is completely accurate either, and I don't think the solution that they proposed is the correct solution. So that's where I am at a loss, and I feel like someone smarter and more knowledgeable than I needs to make that decision. And if that's someone above me, then I would lean towards denying, so it goes through that process, but I also don't like that. That's where I'm thinking, that's a horrible stream of conscious thinking. I am sorry.
I have a quick question, if I may.
Yes.
So, Christine, I know that the union's asked for a decision. Are we obligated to render one tonight?
We are.
We do.
Yes.
Are we?
Yeah,
Are we obligated to render a decision tonight?
Yes.
We can't say, you know what, this is because where my head is.
These generally have
You have to follow the
timeframes
contract.
as to each of the steps, so that as a grievance is going through the steps, at each step of the grievance, there is a defined time period.
Okay, and
to
we're
meet.
in that time period.
We're over time.
Okay. Because, I mean, to me, when you have a contract that has conflicting provisions in it, which is the way I'm reading this, normally the way out of that is negotiation, right?
Yeah,
But that's not an option for us, I guess.
right.
Okay.
One more comment, and then I think we need to go ahead and make a decision.
My question is, if the union chooses to go to...
Ed, can you speak into your
Oh,
microphone?
I'm so sorry. If the union chooses to go to arbitration, how much is that actually likely to cost us? I mean, if that amount exceeds the amount at issue, that would influence my
Don't
decision.
we have insurance for that? We've had this don't we have insurance for that?
You know, yeah. The other thing too is, depending on the nature of your deliberations, given that this could be a matter litigated, you know, some of the deliberations, obviously, I guess you had started in open session and they would continue, except if it was some sort of, you know, discussions of some of these considerations normally would be in an executive session. So I just wanted to caution members.
Can you I'm sorry, that confused me.
Well, for example, if you were trying to make a decision and it wasn't necessarily on the merits, but on, say, some practical consideration, which I think is what Ed was alluding to. Those are the types of considerations or discussions or proposals that, you know, you might normally have in an executive session, even if this matter is already being conducted in an open session.
Well, I was just asking how much it would cost. I was just asking for your factual...
No, I
estimate.
understand. I mean, and you and I can talk later, but I mean, I think that's, you know, some of these things, again, I would just sort of caution members.
So I have one question to 3 committee members. So just looking to see who was on the school committee when this contract was signed, right? We've got Dave Brown, Joe Hicks, and Alyssa Koenig. Do any of you remember or recollect
N-
that the intent of this
So
was...
we were not in the
three of us were
negotiation.
not part of the
Okay.
Oh, well,
the
no,
negotiations
yeah, no.
started before Dave and Alyssa were elected, and
I was not part of the negotiation
and the three of us
team.
were none of us were part of the negotiation teams on that.
Got it. All right. So not a fair question. Okay.
A fair question.
All right, fair question, but not to the right people, not to the people who are there. Okay.
Yeah.
So my question was just going to be to the school committee, which I know now can't get an answer from the people here, but from the school committee's recollection that was part of this, did they remember or that the concept was to pay
Right.
holiday pay at a greater rate than daily rate? So, but we don't know that answer.
We don't know.
Okay.
All right, so I think we need to go ahead and wrap this up and make a decision. I know this is not an easy one, and we're left with not a lot here. It would have been nice if this was that this would have just been written out in black and white and made very clear. It would have made everybody's life a whole lot easier. And unfortunately, it wasn't. And I think as in the future, we all take this as a lesson going forward, whoever is on the committee at next negotiation sessions, to say we need to be very, very clear in the language of how this is to operate, to make it fair for everyone. Given that like I said, we need to render a decision. So we are going to go into our voting order.
Oh, we have to make a motion.
We need a motion.
I would suggest that we do the motion in the same form as the previous one,
Yeah.
and then we can, right, just to be
Yeah.
consistent, and then we can vote on that, so.
Yes.
Thanks for waving your hand over here, Joe. All right, so motion to, I don't remember the wording of the other one, but
We want to
to
say
Deny the grievance.
deny the grievance around the teaching assistants 0.8.9 holiday pay as brought forward by,
Hold on. Motion to deny that the deny the grievance that the superintendent violated the contract by paying it at a prorated rate rather than at a
the holiday pay at the
the-
prorated rate.
Yeah, rather than at a 1.0.
So a yes vote would be to deny, and a no vote would be to not deny or to affirm.
Yes,
Okay. Just want to clarify what,
Yep.
when I say yes or
Yeah,
no, what the vote
yeah.
is means.
correct.
So say that again?
Yes means no, and no means yes.
Yeah, that's where I'm.
Yes means we agree with the superintendent.
And no means.
No
we do not.
means we do not agree with the superintendent.
Thank you.
Yeah, correct.
All right, so that was another motion. Who
All right.
seconded it?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Hicks,
No.
Mr. Moskovich,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
No.
Ms. Cormier,
And I'm just confirming myself which way it goes. Yes means I agree with the superintendent, correct?
correct.
Yes.
And I vote yes. That grievance is denied. All right.
And again, Madam Chair,
Yes, but I do still encourage the parties, I still encourage negotiation. I still strongly believed that this is an issue that can be resolved fairly easily.
and they're the process, but they are also entitled to the process of
Yes.
bringing it to a level 4, as outlined in their contracts.
Thank you, Town Council, for your assistance.
No problem.
Oh my goodness, it's 10 o'clock. Hi, George.
I know.
Uh-huh.
Oh, he's hating us right now. All right.
Thank you, everybody.
If there are no objections, I'd like to defer the school building committee updates until after the school improvement plans are presented.
Sounds good.
Well, I was going to make George do the building update anyway.
Oh, and for the record, there is no Kittredge, there's been no meeting since the last
Okay.
one, so there's no Kittredge building update.
So if George is coming up, he can just like do it all, I think.
All right.
Stick to the plans.
So we can move on to the school improvement plans for the middle school and the high school. Maybe.
Chris can sign off if she
Oh,
wants.
Oh,
Chris, you can sign off if you'd like. You don't have to stay anymore.
We need to consider starting our meetings at like 5 or 6 o'clock. I guess, like,
Well, this one we are
We have too lofty.
Yeah.
we're only 2 hours
All right,
over.
here we
but
go.
We were on. Then we were.
I know.
You guys should get overtime pay.
night.
Hello again, friends. Last week we saw you saw my amazing K-5 team. This week you get to spend some time with an incredible 6 to 12 team. Again, this team, and you can see how small it is, but this team is approaching 60 years of experience in public education.
Wow.
And total, not individual. Exactly. And 35 of them being in school leadership. And so we are among greatness here. I think you'd be hard pressed to find two people that care about kids more. What always moves me about George and Deb is that when you walk through the schools, they know kids' names, they say hello, they say, how's this going, how's that going? And the kids absolutely adore them, and you can tell them walking around. And so they're here tonight to share our plans, and I am lucky to lead them in this work, and I am honored to be their teacher in some ways. And so thanks for being here. Thanks for staying up late, friends. Of course, I'm going to do a quick overview of our district improvement plan, and if we can hold questions to the end, that would be absolutely amazing. Again, NAMS. So our district plan, first goal, big surprise, high-quality instructional materials. Goal number 2 was around multi-tiered systems of support, and our third district goal, which we went into detail in last meeting, was around budget and equity. So I am going to pass it over to the experts, starting with George, to talk about what's going on at NAMS.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having Deb. Thanks for having us. I'd like to just review our goals from last year, provide some progress updates, and then review our goals for this year and what we're working on. It's always an interesting process, putting your goals on paper. I'm actually working on, I think, 1,642 goals. These are 3 of them. So last year we had the NAMS addition and renovation project, and that was a lot of work with a lot of different people. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes much more than a village to build a school and an addition and a renovation project. And I'm so thankful for all the people I got to work with, and I learned a lot and continue to learn a lot. The good news is, thanks to a lot of hard work on the parts of many individuals, we were able to open on time. And it was close. It was close, but we were able to open on time. So that was an exciting adventure, and you'll see what this goal has transformed into when we look at the current year goals. So that one, I would say, has been almost met. The second goal was meeting the needs of all our learners. There is a big focus in our world, in our state, in our town, to better meet the needs of all of our students, to really dig down into the data that we have. And I see this goal as the beginning steps to the HQIM goals. I can tell you that we've been piloting Wit and Wisdom in the English department, investigating history in the social studies department, and illustrative math we've been using now for almost 3 years in the math department. And on the DESE website, we have been exploring through their Curate site what other curricula exist that is strictly aligned to the frameworks, so that we're teaching age-appropriate, content-specific skills to our students. Also looking at our MAP results and our MCAS results, we're digging down to look at subgroup data to see how we can better meet their needs. And we're in the investigatory efforts of that. And then goal 3 is an equity goal. The high school and the middle school, we essentially aligned with what the district had for a goal last year, because we were doing this work together. And we thought, why not partner at the district level, both secondary schools, to really look at what equity for all students looks like. So partnering with the high school 2 years ago, we led 3 Facing History and Ourselves with the folks from Facing History and Ourselves, 3 PD workshops. And then last fall, we did the 4th and final workshop, PD, with our staff. We've also shared with staff different ways to communicate with families who speak languages other than English. That's why you have a little logo for talking points. We've used DeepL Translator. Our superintendent, Pam Lathrop, has provided all the principals with access to SMORE. So all of our newsletters are in SMORE, and you can translate that into 180 languages. It's amazing. I used to translate all my messages into Portuguese and Spanish and redo the links and do the formatting. This is way better. And then what you see pictured there is some of the pictures you saw, similar pictures to what you saw tonight. Just NAMS trying to find ways to bring families into the fabric of NAMS much more, with a geography night pictured on the left, and that's just one of the many displays, and our celebration in the CAF with our students, and a geography night, Henta tattoos on the right as well. So we continue to work on this. We continue to better meet the needs of our learners. And something else I'm really proud of is our work we did with the Deeper Learning Grant last year. So the middle school principal, the high school principal, and staff from the middle and high school, we worked with DESE through a Deeper Learning Grant it has a big focus on equity. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we look at our this year's goals. So that's a little bit about our last year's goals in a nutshell. And then going to this year's goals, well, what is the continuation of an addition and renovation project? Like, what do we do now that it's hopefully going to be done by January 3rd? Well, now we look at the resources that we now have. We look at our scheduling, and I'm coming after finding out about our deficit. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention there was talk at one point of hiring 15 teachers for NAMS, which got cut down to 10 teachers and an assistant principal. So I don't know where that stands or where that's going to be, but we have to be planning for potentially adding staff. And adding staff means we're adding programming. We're seriously looking at how we can modify our schedule to expand our related arts offering. We did happen to build a makerspace. Wouldn't it be great to hire a STEM teacher to teach in there? We're also looking at expanding our related arts offerings and finding ways to offer students choice. Right now, we're a comprehensive related arts experience for all of our students, meaning they go through all the same related arts. Wouldn't it be great if they'll go through some of the same, but they have a choice for one every year or every trimester? So with looking at staffing, we could potentially do that. So that's what that team is doing, is we're looking at scheduling, we're looking at building an advocacy block, expanding what we already do with class meetings, and we're always looking to improve Tier 1, 2, and 3 supports for our students, which ties nicely into the district goal of multi-tiered systems of support. So that's what that goal is. And then goal number 2, sometimes I put the cart before the horse. You know, sometimes we're diving deep into MCAS data and MAP data, and I wonder what people's formal training has been in all this. So working with one of my mentors, Kristen Ando, in reviewing these goals, we recognized, we need to start with an assessment literacy goal. We need to really make sure that staff can understand and analyze and interpret all of the data, identify the strengths, areas of improvement, compare to current practice, make adjustments to their practice, assess and evaluate using student data and student work. You can imagine all the different protocols that are necessary to do this work. And then you continue the cycle, rinse and repeat. So that is what we're embarking on this year, is to really provide staff the opportunity to understand and to interpret the data, to then look at what we're teaching, how we're teaching it, what are their curricular resources, and then see what we can do to improve teaching and learning for all of our students. So we use MAP data for that, we use MCAS data, we use the state frameworks, we use different learning tools, and we take what we learned from the Deeper Learning grant. And I'll talk about that in the next goal. And then the final goal parallels very nicely with the district goal, where we're naming high quality instructional materials and we're naming deeper learning and equity. And HQIM I mentioned, we're continuing to use wit and wisdom, investigating history, illustrative math. We're taking a close look at the frameworks. We're looking at what else is available. There's some. They're still working on developing more high quality instructional materials, and we're looking at that. But we want to also include how much we learn from deeper learning. And we learned that all students need to be known and valued in all classes. Learning experiences need to be relevant, real world, and interactive. And individualized supports need to exist that enable students to excel at grade level. So we've been trained in that. We're going to continue to participate in training, and we're going to be providing professional development for our teachers. So although absolutely I have to give my teachers time to pack and prepare for moves, but I will tell you it kills me that I can't use every second of that time for professional development, but it's okay. We'll get there. We have one final move scheduled for November 2nd, and then a very small move maybe during the holiday break in December. But we're almost there, and then we can dive into some good quality PD again. All right. So those are our goals for NAMS.
Thanks, George.
You're welcome.
Deb, you ready?
Ready. Great. Hi, everybody. Deb Holman at the high school. I was at the high school 8 years ago. I think some of you know as interim high school principal. Then I did my sojourn into elementary at Sargent Elementary, and now I'm back. And it's a blast, and it's exhausting. And I was not taped to the wall. So I know. Yeah. Maybe, yeah. That's right, growth mindset. All right, so I will do an update reported to me by staff and administrators on last year's goals that my predecessor, Chet Jackson, led, and he is a colleague of mine from 8 years ago and over the last 7 years. And then I'll get to our current goals. So, goal update on number 1. Last year, the goal was that the high school would use MCAS disaggregated data to reflect on strengths and gaps, and to work, of course, to improve instructional practice. So science, math, ELA, annually review data and consider strengths and lower performance areas to inform the changes that they see necessary to make in instruction. And they look at the overall performance as well as doing test item analysis to really look at and then ask, is there a trend of lower performance on a particular skill in math or ELA that the department realizes they have been de-emphasizing, and therefore they need to beef it up. They are also digging into subgroup data, like George's folks are too, and that work is really ongoing. That's something that we continue to do, of course, right now because the scores for the spring are out. So that is goal number 1. Goal number 2 for last year was the high school would continue to develop a culture of continuous staff learning by setting expectations and providing PD time for staff to reflect and make adjustments to practice to meet all students' needs. So a number of things that they reported that were done last year was they implemented peer observations. Staff had a desire to see their peers in action in different departments so that perhaps they could pick up some different moves that teachers made or ways that the lesson was structured that the observing staff member could implement in his or her class. They reported that this was useful, and staff reported that the observations generated some conversations in department meetings, which was good. The other thing that a lot of people talked about was educator learning walks and debriefs. So Debbie Daly, who is the math department head, and Principal Chet Jackson led small teacher administrative groups that visited over 20 teachers' classrooms. So 20 teachers opened up their classrooms to these walks. And then multiple observer groups would reconvene together and debrief on what they observed, what patterns they may have seen based around a focusing question that they were observing for, and then they discuss the implications for learning. Debbie Daly said to me yesterday that last year they had 76 total staff who volunteered for either peer observations or learning walks, and a couple people did both. So with a staff of about 115, that's well over half. So that was good, and that's something that Debbie Daly and I are going to implement again this year, the learning walks. The third goal for last year was the school community will continue to internalize equity concepts according to the district focus and the belief that intellectualism is the counter-narrative to negative and racist stereotypes about students as achievers. Things that folks did last year was the Facing History Anti-Bias training continued from the heavy year in 22-23. And there was an emphasis last year on social emotional PD, and it focused on the importance of the teacher-student relationship, which is the foundation. If you don't establish that, you really can't go anywhere with kids. So there was a whole variety of PD that Michelle O'Leary led with the high school. So then we get to this year, a transition year, and sort of a now what year. And up there are a number of great initiatives and offerings that the high school has that lead into goal number 1 for this year. And there are so many great opportunities for students at the high school, but there's a question now of what sort of unifies that work, what unifies the programming and the vision, and what is the cohesion. So recognizing that the school is terrific, it truly is, and also recognizing that we are not where we want to be for all students. This year is a chance to pause, to reflect, and to reset is what we've decided, since I'm an interim, and it's a kind of a take a breath year. Goal 1 frames some work around that reflection. So goal 1 is Portrait of a Learner and Equity, phase 1. And the goal is by the end of the year, all stakeholder groups will participate in contributing to the Portrait of a Learner process. So defining a portrait of a learner is defining your vision of a graduate. What skills and competencies and experiences would graduates have in their 4-year experience through a high school? It's often used these days for NEASC accreditation purposes, or it can be used just as a really, really good process and practice of reflection. And that's what we would be using it for. So up on the graphic, the road is a long road, and it's not quick and easy work. And I keep saying to faculty, this is not just 2 faculty meetings. We figure out what our portrait of a learner is, and we're done. It includes a lot of other people, including students, of course, but every piece that we do has value. So on the road for this year, on the left, if you got on the right, your final product after probably some years of work, if you want to take it that far, is your very developed, defined portrait of a learner. But on the left, we decided that the 2 bites that we could take this year were really surfacing our beliefs about learning and drafting a definition of learning for the high school. And then wherever the high school goes next year, this process this year is valuable. All right, so a few examples of what this looks like now for faculty, because this was actually really fun, and we're having some fun in faculty meetings. This September, last month, we did a Jobs of the Future activity where we generated jobs of the future. And in pairs in the big faculty room, people talked about and considered those jobs and the skills they required. And we often think, oh, well, we're preparing kids for to be teachers, to be lawyers, to be nurses, to be physicians. All of that is true, and yet the jobs that AI generated for us were things like space vacation guide, AI ethics officer, AI art curator, drone traffic controller, neurodiversity inclusion officer, which we loved that one especially. So people would talk about, well, what skills would we need to, equip kids for if that was a job? So it really started educators, many of whom are veteran, thinking, oh, how am I teaching and what am I pushing for in terms of skills? So that was a good activity. Then yesterday, actually, in the faculty meeting. We all gathered in the cafeteria and we did a food for thought activity where we posted purposeful prompts. A couple of them are up on the graphic there. Purposeful prompts that relate to beliefs about learning, core values, and a definition of learning. So what powerful learning is, what learning is not, some challenges facing the modern world are, and faculty responded to those, writing them on the posters themselves. So what that gave us is really an inventory of faculty beliefs and thoughts and values at this moment in time. And the interesting thing is the next step that we do is we do that same activity with the same questions with students and then do a crosswalk and how do they compare and how do they match. It's a full year of fun, thinking, and learning for our Portrait of a Learner, right? Number 2. Second goal is faculty development and equity. And I think the previous goal is also faculty development, but it is that the high school will continue to develop their culture of continuous learning by setting expectations, providing PD for staff to reflect and make adjustments to practice. So we recognize that students in subgroups are not finding as much success on our MCAS and other accountability data. And the admin team is looking at that accountability data now together, and then departments look specifically at it. So we know we need to continue to examine instruction and really up our game. The high school this year was accepted into DESE's deeper learning cohort for 24-25, so DESE instructional coaches will work with the leadership team, which is administrators, including myself, and the department coordinators, because that's the group of people who observes, supports, and evaluates instruction. We will learn, practice, and pilot the deeper learning class visit tool, which really pushes observations of lessons and learning to looking at, are there elements where kids are really building mastery in a lesson or in a unit, and are students designing, driving, and directing their learning through creative products and solutions. So that's going to be a lot of leadership teamwork for that part. The second part, or the last part, maybe the third part here, is that we will do learning walks again with mixed teacher admin observer groups, and we will use aspects of the deeper learning observation tool. All right. Okay. Then the last, maybe the best goal is something that doesn't sound very interesting. It's operations and equity. I found that at the beginning of the year I was doing a lot with operations, from facilities to protocols, procedures, expectations, policies. And I'm going to tell you why they're homecoming pictures on this particular goal. I'm going to weave the story. So the goal is by the end of the academic year, we will strengthen comprehensive operations structures, procedures, safety protocols while upgrading facility infrastructure to reinforce a secure, welcoming environment for all students and staff. So these are important to me because kids feel safe when stuff in the building works and expectations and practices are really clear to them. It's important to me because trust, especially among the adults, is created with clarity around processes and procedures. When those are unclear, there's distrust. It's important to me because cortisol levels and stress levels of kids are lowered when faculty are present around the building and at events, and when students hear articulated expectations and accountability. So there are good practices at North Andover High School when I arrived, and we're making them better this year. For example, often starts with faculty, and it starts with simple things. So faculty are wearing IDs this year on a tag or on a lanyard. And Scott Young, our fabulous assistant principal, he's been there for over 20 years. He has the institutional knowledge of that place. He felt really strongly about this at the beginning of the year, and I agreed because it allows kids to see in a big school that that is a teacher wearing the ID, and first responders who come in would recognize that also. So we're doing that. Faculty are consistently visible throughout the day at their duties in the cafeteria, in the library, in the hallways, outside the bathroom. That's comforting for kids and helps with sort of the flow of kids after the bell has rung. There's also increased faculty presence at unstructured times like pep rallies and football games recently. We saw you there. We saw you. Yes. I saw you. I saw you. Thank you for coming. So that's some things that faculty are doing. Students, safety expectations have been articulated over and over. George has helped with those around student comportment at big school events like, again, football games, and dances too, which we just had one. Shifting over to facilities, some of the things facilities-wise that we're working on this year. You've heard about the cafeteria furniture upgrade that's going to take place. Classroom phones next week are going to be upgraded. Intercom system and fire alarm system are going to be upgraded in 2025. And we're working on vape detector installation through a grant process. So then the last thing I'll highlight under operations is policy. We are reviewing our cell phone policy. That was the top faculty concern in my entry survey in September. It was actually quite overwhelming how much the faculty commented on it and are concerned about it. And I would say that it is the change from 8 years ago, from my being at the high school, that is most drastic to me in terms of observing how kids are attached to their cell phones and when they are attached to their cell phones. So it's a concern. So the committee to review the policy is wonderful people. Diane Fryermuth, a very wise and experienced teacher in the history department, Christy Morley in the English department, Kate Flanagan in math, she's a data whiz, and Tony Delmonico from art. So we have a nice cross section of people. We're pulling research, we're talking to peer schools and looking at their policies, and we'll ultimately pulling kids, families, and draft some recommendations that we would then connect with middle school and elementary school and ultimately bring to this group here to review and to Pam. So, but the best thing is I've got the homecoming pictures up there, so I'm going to weave my story to an end here. So, homecoming dance picture. If you, on the left side, left and right side, those are the pep rallies. The pep rally last Friday. Totally fun. In the middle, the blue and purple picture is the homecoming dance. And one of the chaperones told me, go up on top of the catwalk, look down, it's a great view, take a picture. And I took a picture, I took a video. As I was watching the video and listening to the music over and over on the weekend, because it was such a good dance, I looked at that picture and I thought, hot dang, they do not have their cell phones out. They are not using their cell phones. All through that wonderful dance, they were connecting with each other because too much fun was happening. Students were present with each other. They were embodied en masse. They were not virtual. They were interacting in real time, up close, dancing, singing, laughing, having a slice of pizza and a bottle of water. It was amazing. Incredible. And a Shirley Temple at the Shirley Temple bar, which was adorable. There was one inquiry to a teacher between dances about a homework assignment that was due on Monday. And one parent, it was great, was at the ready when a student phoned home for a wardrobe upgrade. And they drove it out, so that was cool. But I guess this is the type of, when I think about cell phone policy, we're never going to get rid of cell phones completely, but it was just such a reminder over the weekend that this is the type of activity that high schools are all about and that kids need, less time on the phone and more time dancing. So I'm, you can tell, really excited to be back at the high school to work with a great staff and to really think about these types of experiences that we can provide for kids. So those are our goals.
Let it be noted that it's almost 10:20, and this is the level of excitement that we have from our leaders. I mean, our kids are so lucky. Thank you, both of you.
Was that I'm not allowed to ask? You're not allowed to ask
I know,
questions,
she's
Joe.
like, let me remind you, it's 10:20.
You can if you want.
I'm going to offer a question that can be answered later. How about that? So I'm a data guy too, and I love to see results and how they're measured. So I don't need to know them now because it's late. But if you guys have the time at some point to sort of just maybe email us a blurb about how well we did on those goals last year and how you measured them, that would be great. Thank you. Great presentation. And I love the wearing IDs. I think that's very good. That's really
I'm going to
good.
jump in with 2 questions before Joe because he has a lot of questions.
I don't. I only have.
Sure you do.
for the middle school, I know we had a presentation not long ago about HQIM and piloting some of the with investigating history and wit and wisdom, and one of the things that struck me was, I believe it was there was nobody piloting, was it wit and wisdom in the 6th grade, or was it investigating history? Investigating history, we are
Piloting grade-wise, but we have a few teachers using some units.
Yeah. So I was just out of curiosity, how do you get teachers excited about piloting those new HQIM materials and wanting them to do that?
Well, there's no clear-cut answer on how to do it. It's bringing it forward and letting them review it, look through it, and then giving them the ability to try out in a small way a unit, a series of lessons. And what you immediately notice when you look at them is the level of rigor in the lessons, and then you sometimes get surprised that that rigor matches the frameworks exactly. So this is actually what we're supposed to be asking kids to do at the grade level, and that's why it's really important to use HQIM, because it is exactly matching the state frameworks for that grade level. And then it's really about the support, try it, the PD, giving them time, providing the training, and just baby steps. Because what I found, even just being at NAMS, this is now my 7th year, ideas that were initially presented that people weren't ready for, I turn around and now they're applying and implementing them. Sometimes they just need time, because we're all pretty competent and we don't look for opportunities to not be competent. So sometimes we have to try things out slowly. Yeah. So it's happening. It's just happening over time. And then the people who are doing it and finding great success, then let's hear them. And then how do you say no to that? Because specifically when you think about data that Mr. Brown just asked about, illustrative math has been used now 3 years. Our math growth is pretty darn good. And is it directly correlated to that HQIM? It might be. It might be.
Thank you. And then I had a question about the cell phone policy. Is there a timeline on the draft recommendations?
Timeline for when we would get them potentially to this body?
Of when you're wanting to get, right, or when you're wanting to get them together. I mean, I know you've got the committee together, which is a great step. You're wanting to bring more people into it. Do you have some type of timeline when you're looking to say, okay, we want to get an initial draft, or before we bring more people into it, and then revise it? And
no, that's a fair question. It's very iterative at this point. We would like to do a draft of something with more stakeholders, potentially middle school, by the spring, certainly.
So hopefully have something in place at least by fall.
That would be awesome.
Is that kind of the goal?
That would be awesome. Yeah, January would be great, but that's not going to happen, so.
But maybe by next year.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. All right, Joe, you can have your turn now.
I feel shamed against being inquisitive. Not
at all.
George, this is going to qualify as our official North Andover Building Committee update. So,
there you go.
Ready?
You're going to weave it in?
We're gonna do it right now.
All right.
When are we going to be done?
Hold the cheese.
When are we going to be done?
So the date they have is January 3rd as finishing the auditorium, and that would be the final phase of the project.
And that, I feel like that's earlier than we anticipated originally. It was supposed to be mid to late January.
We voted as a committee to push it all back, so that it's earlier than the original proposal, but it's
on time.
On time, yeah.
And we are going to meet the budget, correct?
The budget? Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
I just want to highlight those two things, that we are on time and under budget. We're early and cheaper.
We want to stay under budget as much as possible.
Yes.
To help out with other building projects.
And we have the 7th grade, if my own children have told me correctly, are moving to the carrier wing next
which
week.
Was formerly the 8th grade wing. So we've decided to keep the 8th graders in the brand new wing with bigger hallways, bigger lockers, nice classrooms as kind of your culminating year of middle school, and to have 2/3 of the school in the same long hallway isn't the wisest decision. So we are going to do what we've always done, which is keep each of the 3 grades in 3 different wings. So 7th grade goes from Freeman to Carrier, Sim stays 6th grade, and then all of those additional programs that and teachers who didn't have classes, they'll be in Freeman, and it actually puts the related arts classes more centrally located than that related art is way over there and that one's way over there. Now they're all much closer together.
And that was not the anticipated.
That was not the anticipated.
That's not what we thought at the beginning. So it's
Yeah.
been a moving thing, which has been great. We adjust as needed. Okay, so that's our official building committee update. On time, under budget. Ms. Holm, Deb, I'm losing my mind right now, like blanking.
So am I.
I'm like, what am I supposed to talk about? Portrait of a Learner, the new way to say something about a graduate.
Vision of a graduate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is this as a result of one of the NEASC recommendations from 2 years ago? Is this the thing that they wanted us to do that we hadn't done yet? I feel like we're like in year 2 or 3 post NEASC report.
So, I think I know. So we're up for NEASC in 2030.
Yeah.
Lynn Grantham, the other assistant principal, and I, in August, we went to a fantastic Portrait of a Learner, sponsored by NEASC, workshop. The NEASC person recognized us and said, "You owe us some updated report." I said, "I don't know what you're talking about. I just arrived." And I actually know her, so she was going to get in touch. It is like an update on, yeah. So.
And I think I like this process. I think it's really amazing, really fantastic. As teachers, we always want to prepare kids for what comes next, and yet we don't know exactly what's going to come next for them. We're trying to get them ready to do things and do jobs we don't even know exist and solve problems that we can't even imagine. So it's hard. And I think like shaping it this way is the way to really think about, are we getting them ready?
Yeah,
and then this question is for both of y'all. Because you're doing learning walks and looking at data, and both of those then culminate in you learning something. And it's like, want to learn like what happens after the debrief of like, we go, we watch, we learn, we see these things happening. Some are good, some are great. And then we debrief, and then what's next? And then after we've learned these things with the data, like what does adjustment to practice actually look like?
I think for the high school, for the learning walks this year, because I've done learning walks in Newton and Brookline and lots of different places, here also with administrative team, they will inform our conversations with the Portrait of a Learner. Like, if this is what we're finding, we're noticing with a targeted question, I don't know what the question will be with Deb Daly and me in March, but if this is what we're seeing as a pattern when we observe ourselves teaching, how does that, and it's a strength, but here's the deficit or the gap we're finding, how does that play into how we consider Portrait of a Learner in our own practice? But your question is also, how does it go back to adjustment to practice through, to be determined, however, the structure would be using the departments and the department meetings.
Thank you.
And I would answer that in similar ways. So I do want to comment on this idea of kids' futures. There's 2 quotes I always keep in the back of my head. There's way more than that, actually. But 2 of them are, we're not preparing kids for our past. We're preparing them for their future. And the second one I always think about is we're preparing them for jobs that don't exist today. So therefore, what are the skills we should be focusing and teaching them so they can do those jobs that we don't even know exist? But to go back to your question, so one is by providing PD we identify as valuable based on doing data analysis and our own observations of staff. You provide PD, and then you have focus areas. Because it takes a long time to be able to go into any class and just evaluate. And now if we're asking colleagues whose focus hasn't been to evaluate but to teach, now we're asking them to wear a different hat. It really is beneficial to say, okay, we looked at this walkthrough tool through the Deeper Learning Grant, and if we focus on the first section or the second or the third, okay, for this month, This is what evaluators are going to come looking for. If I do a PD on making sure you have clear, student-friendly learning objectives in class, now the evaluators are going around the next 2 weeks, and we're giving you constructive feedback on that. Okay, what are we working on next? It's like my golf game. Keep my head down. Check. Now what? Give me the next thing to work on. It's still not good, but that's the idea.
And those are the things. I mean, I would love to hear those things, like what those things are that are yet to be determined, like sometime in the spring or when we get the report about how the school improvement plan went. Like that's the fun stuff that we get to hear about. Like this is what we saw, this is what we did, this is how it worked.
Yeah,
so, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Moskovich?
So, I'm of course new to the school committee, but for a project I was working on, I got the individual MCAS data and started some longitudinal analysis, and I did this basically for all the major communities in the state and looked at, among other things, how many of the children, and I did this all before the pandemic just because it was sort of more cohesive, so this may well be out of date. But what it showed at the time was, I think it was like there were 189 students who were in 4th grade in North Andover schools who were all, and tested, and were also in 8th grade. Unfortunately, fortunately, the file is structured in such a way that all the longitudinal stuff's already in there. All you have to do is look at the difference. And what I found was that of those exact same students, more of them were proficient in reading in 4th grade than in 8th grade. Now, I understand it may not be that way now, but that is consistent with the concerns that led to the special education study, and they gave data that said, it does mean that all students weren't learning, but at that time there was some sort of problem. Now, and I understand it's a different time period, we're hearing some really exciting, I know there's some very exciting initiatives. So I'm trying to sort of put this together in my head. We're obviously beginning to do a lot of stuff that's very imaginative and higher expectations, which is great. And we used to have a problem, and I just would appreciate your thoughts about why do you think that was and how is it being addressed? It's more, I mean, I don't know that because in high school, what I could have done, but I didn't, was looked at 10th to 8th grade. But
Yeah.
you get the idea.
Can I interrupt? I really want to stay focused on the school improvement plans that they're presented tonight. So can we reserve that question for maybe another time?
Well, okay, I guess I would say, do these plans sort of address that? I mean, they mentioned some of those things.
I can tell you that we don't know if that's a real concern or a current concern until we go through the data. You mentioned in a longitudinal way, so therefore we would have to go through the data in a longitudinal way. So when you decide what your focus areas are, it's really what does the data say, and we're unearthing now what the data says. I will tell you we had a lot of confounding variables after COVID, and I feel like this year, last year's data, it's giving a truer reflection of what our kids are what they know and are able to do. And I feel like now we can grasp. I felt like we were grasping at straws looking at COVID data because there was so many factors to why students answered things. But under our full-time instruction, now we can really, the data becomes a little clearer, and we're still looking at that.
So when you're looking at it, are you following individual students to see how they? Good?
Yeah.
So my response to that would be, were that data to be similar now with reading, I think at the secondary level, and even more so at high school, looking at content area reading, that's the difficulty. We assume that kids come into science and history and math knowing how to read the content area vocabulary. In reading, we make lots of assumptions about that. In different secondary schools, one that I was previously at, we had a whole content reading initiative throughout the school to really solidify those skills.
When I found that data, it struck me that of course was consistent with the idea that for many years we used the wrong stuff to teach students to read. I know we've fixed that now, but you're dealing with the students that didn't have research base. So your teachers who normally think of themselves as teachers of math and history, somebody needs to be at least for now, needs to be teaching reading in the high school.
Right, fair. Yep.
The only other thing I would add, just I'm asking you guys to get back to us later about, measuring. How do you measure? How did we do last year based on that measurement? How do you intend to measure this year? But the other thing that strikes me that I would love to hear about is, I guess I could summarize it this way. You're collecting a lot of information, not just the data stuff, but you're building walkthroughs, all the things you discussed. I'd love to hear at some point in the future how you use it, right? How are you going to use it? What are you going to do with that, what you learned?
I also just want to point out that tonight you heard an overview of their goals, but in your packet you have the complete school improvement plan that has their outcomes and their benchmarks and outcomes. So I would encourage you to look at the complete school improvement plan as well.
Yeah. Okay. And thank you for coming in, guys.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for coming in and thank you for staying. Yeah. Hopefully 2 quick things. So one, just an observation. I love the quote that is on both of your slides. It's the district mindset, but that intellectualism is the counter narrative to negative and racist stereotypes. I just say that's fantastic. It's great to see that in so many places. And then second, just because, earlier today, as you know, we were talking about our budget and the deficit that we're running, and just kind of keying off of one of the last slides talking about facility infrastructure improvements. I know the vape, you mentioned the vape detectors are coming from a grant. We already know the cafe tables are coming from food services. Are any of the those infrastructure planned improvements, are those already budgeted? Do we have that money? Where is that coming from? Is there any?
Largely, the facility operation will come out of capital improvement. Okay. So our Director for Personnel and Operations, Greg Landry, has been working with John Mullen, our Director of Facilities, and all of the principals to put forth our capital improvement plan. So a lot of those structural pieces will come out of capital improvement.
Okay, so it'll be separate from our
Correct.
School budget. So as we're continuing to talk about this, people need to understand we can still spend money in this area and still deliver on these things for our kids, but yet then focus on the other problems. Thank you. It was great to hear both of these plans. Thank you.
Thank you so much for
Thank
coming.
you.
Thanks for presenting. We appreciate all that you do.
Good luck with the rest of your night.
Thank you so much.
Drive
Morning, you better be
safely. He's not lying.
Yeah, I'm going to point every dollar.
Okay. We have deferred the superintendent goals till next meeting. We have, the last thing was policy BDFA through E. I am going to request that we defer that to next meeting for the purpose that our custodial staff is supposed to be done by 11, and we want to avoid them having to stay for overtime.
Yeah.
None
of us will quarrel with you.
Yeah.
So,
no
with no objections,
No
we
objections.
will also defer that to the next meeting. We have no new business.
I do need to say a public comment. Missed thing for roundtable. Sorry, that I need to include.
Go ahead.
Sorry, and it's part of my role as vice chair to do this, and Ms. Lathrop reminded me.
Sorry.
On October 30th, we have our annual Teacher Hall of Fame ceremony. It's happening at the Historical Society at 6:30 in the evening. It's when we get to honor both all the teachers who have earned professional status, and we'll be officially inducting Mrs. Lisa Bernard into the Educator Hall of Fame. So everyone should be there.
I'm glad you remembered that.
I didn't. Ms. Lathrop did.
Thank you for remembering that.
I wrote down a question about it, and she answered it without
All right. All right. Next meeting is Thursday, November 7th. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
You certainly do.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Mr. Hicks.
Yes.
Mr. Moskovich.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Ms. Cormier.
Yes.
And I vote yes. We are adjourned.
Thank you.